Chapter 1400. Yi Chun. Supremacy Yi. Supremacy Yi is back. He's so strong. He destroyed Supremacy Sky Hook's attack with a single palm strike. Dugu Ju, Supremacy True Martial, Supremacy Golden Buddha, Supremacy Sky Hook, and Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns were all looking at the blue-robed young man in the sky. They completely ignored Sky Splitter and Supremacy Seven Moons. It couldn't be helped. Yi Chun's appearance was like the sun. Those around him were easily overshadowed by his radiance. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns sized up Yi Chun with interest. In recent years, he had often heard about this genius named Yi Chun. It was said that he had the strength of a high-level supremacy before he disappeared. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns didn't believe it at first, but now it seemed that the rumors were true. Although Supremacy Sky Hook hadn't used his full strength just now, and Supremacy True Martial and Supremacy Golden Buddha weren't worthy of him using his full strength, as a high-level legendary supremacy, a casual attack could seriously injure a beginner legendary supremacy. Yet, Yi Chun had destroyed his attack with a single palm strike. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns guessed that Yi Chun's strength should be stronger than Supremacy True Martial and Supremacy True Martial. Supremacy True Martial was just a slightly stronger beginner legendary supremacy. This is going to be interesting. Let's see how Supremacy Sky Hook will deal with this. Heavenly Venerate Giant Spirit was a legendary supremacy of the giant race. He was even taller than Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns. Just sitting there, he was already 600 feet tall. Standing up, he was at least 800 feet tall. Supremacies of a giant race had always been tall. This was their optimal battle form. I've heard many rumors about this little guy. I finally met him. Not far from Empyrean Giant Miracle was another giant race legend supremacy, Supremacy Ingsha. She was a female supremacy, and even though she was sitting there, she was also 500 feet tall. However, her figure was much more slender, and her features could be considered charming. Her arms were bare, and there were two golden bracelets on her wrists and upper arms. The legendary paragon of the barbarian race, Paragon Blooddrinker, looked very old. Although his withered body still looked strong, it wasn't full. Around his neck hung a necklace made of white bones, and on it were the skulls of all sorts of vicious beasts. These vicious beasts had been shrunk to the size of an adult's head, and the one at the very front was the head of a vicious beast that looked like a bull's head. Its withered body exuded a thick aura of savagery, as if it were a primitive tribe that ate raw meat and drank blood. He chuckled, his eyes flashing with a frightening light. "Supreme Yi, you're finally back." The moment True Martial Supreme and Gold Buddha Supreme saw Yi Chun, they couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. To be honest, they had shouldered too much pressure for Yi Chun. This pressure originally didn't belong to them. If it were someone else, there wouldn't be many who would dare to confront a high-rank legendary supreme like them. "Supreme Yi, let's talk this out. I believe the other party will give you some face." Supreme True Martial didn't forget to remind Yi Chun while heaving a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Yi Chun would completely fall out with Supreme Sky Hook, which wouldn't be good for anyone. Most importantly, Supreme Sky Hook was a high-level legendary supremacy, and although Yi Chun had broken his attack, Supreme Sky Hook didn't kill him. After all, Supreme Sky Hook wouldn't dare to openly kill him and Supreme Golden Buddha. Once Supreme Sky Hook went all out, no matter how talented Yi Chun was, he wouldn't be able to block it. However, Supreme True Martial had forgotten something very important. This was the wedding venue of Supreme Sky Hook, and if he compromised in front of so many people, he would become the joke of the universe. He couldn't afford to lose this face. At this moment, no one could make him lower his head except for the white pole sword saint. "Dugu, thank you." Yi Chun saw Duguju's actions. With the Netherworld Sacred Eye, he could see the situation on the Blue Diamond Island from far away. "Don't forget that we're from the same place. Fortunately, you're here. Otherwise, I would have to retreat." Duguju smiled, making a rare joke. He then glanced at Supreme Sky Hook. "Yi Chun, teach him a lesson. I believe that with your current strength, you won't be afraid of him." "That's for sure." Yi Chun looked at Supreme Sky Hook coldly. Supreme Sky Hook tightly clenched his fists. The Zhen Yuan in his body boiled, faintly emitting a dense silver-white radiance. After being provoked again and again, Supreme Skyhook even had the urge to kill. Moreover, this was his wedding. This time, he had made up his mind to capture Yi Chun and the others and humiliate them to relieve the hatred in his heart. "You're Yi Chun." Supreme Skyhook's voice was deep and gloomy. "That's right. If you kneel down and apologize in front of so many people, I can forgive you. Remember, you don't have a choice. My tolerance is limited." Supreme Skyhook gave an ultimatum. "I'll say the same to you. Kneel down and apologize, and you'll be saved." Yi Chen's attitude had shocked everyone. It seemed like he was going to fight back. Yi Chen Sai, Supreme True Martial and Supreme Gold Buddha, cursed inwardly. This was bad. Other than Sword Saint Bai Ji, no one else could control the situation. "You're courting death." Supreme Skyhook roared, and his Skyhook domain suddenly erupted, covering several tens of thousands of li. Within the domain were numerous Skyhook phantoms condensed from domain power. Countless Skyhook phantoms slashed at Yi Chun, emitting a biting cold aura. At the same time, Supreme Skyhook's entire body soared into the sky, and a 2-meter-long hook appeared in his hand. The hook light flickered, and he charged at Yi Chun like a reaper from hell. Is Supreme Skyhook going to kill Yi Chun? That's not good. If Sword Saint Bai Ji finds out, all of us will be implicated. Everyone started to worry for Yi Chun when they saw Supreme Skyhook's stance. Yi Chun's expression didn't change at all. He was so calm that it was chilling. "Supreme Skyhook, I'll let you know that there's always someone better than you out there. You're just an ant before me." Clang! Unsheathing the heavenly sword, Yi Chen's entire body seemed to have transformed into a sun brimming with sword chi as he slashed at Supreme Skyhook. Azure Dragon, White Tiger, Vermilion Bird, and Black Tortoise, for great sword auras blasted out simultaneously. 4 Elephant Sword Art, 4 Elephant Overlord Sword. Supreme Skyhook wasn't worthy of his full strength. To everyone's astonishment, Supreme Skyhook's Heaven Hook domain was torn apart by the sword chi. The domineering sword chi even knocked the hook out of Supreme Skyhook's hand and slashed at Supreme Skyhook. Puffed. Supreme Skyhook spat out a mouthful of blood. He was sent flying like a scarecrow. He couldn't fight back at all. Silence. It was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water. Everyone stared blankly at Yi Chun, who was floating in the sky. Their mouths were wide open. They were all scared out of their wits. An advanced legendary supremacy couldn't even block a single strike from Yi Chun. To them, this was a fantasy. Chapter 1401. Supreme Skyhook was lying on the ground, his right hand pointing at Yi Chun. Puff! He only managed to utter a single word before spurting out another mouthful of blood. Today, he had lost all his face. He had never suffered such a huge blow in his entire life. "Are my eyes playing tricks on me?" Supreme True Martial looked at the Golden Buddha in disbelief. The Golden Buddha smiled bitterly. Haven't he created enough miracles? This time it's a bit too much. Supreme True Martial said. As expected, there's nothing you can't do. Duguju saw all of this. What surprised him was that he wasn't surprised at all. It was as if Yi Chen's strength was reasonable, and there was no need to be surprised. All the Supremes were shocked. Those below the Supreme's level were dumbfounded. Apart from the 9 Suns, Heavenly Sovereign, the other 3 legendary Supremes sighed with complicated expressions. There was shock, admiration, and a hint of jealousy and bewilderment in their eyes. Judging from the strength of Yi Chen's sword strike just now, all of them could only sigh at their own inferiority. They knew that even if they were Supreme Skyhook, they wouldn't be able to block that sword strike. "Paragon Skyhook, I'll lock you up for 100 years so you can wake up." Yi Chen didn't plan to let Supreme Skyhook go. Of course, he wouldn't kill him either. That would only cause the human race alliance to fall apart. It was unwise. As he spoke, Yi Chen's figure flickered and appeared beside Supreme Skyhook, his hand grabbing at the latter's neck. "How dare you!" Supreme Skyhook screamed. His ethereal force and domain exploded, trying to shake off Yi Chun. Yi Chun sneered, and a black hole suddenly appeared in his right palm. The black hole fiercely revolved, sucking in Supreme Skyhook's Zhen Yuan and domain. After so many years, Yi Chun had long since cultivated black hole style to the level of being able to use it as he pleased. He could even use it with his palm, and it was not limited to sword arts. Juyong, save me. Supreme Skyhook begged the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign for help. How dare you? Yi Chun, do you still care about the Human Race Alliance? The Juyong Heavenly Sovereign couldn't just sit back and watch. In fact, when Yi Chun appeared beside Supreme Skyhook, the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign was already ready. He punched. His fist seemed to be condensed with thousands of suns. It was dazzling, hot, and seemed to be able to evaporate and explode everything. Supreme Martial Art, 9 Solar Fist. Yi Chun didn't expect the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign to attack so suddenly. He didn't have time to draw his sword. Bang! Yi Chun's palm energy contained a suction force that could absorb all kinds of power. On the other hand, 9 Suns Heavenly Sovereign's 9 Suns fist was invincible, constantly spewing blazing light and power. As soon as the two came into contact, a popping sound was heard. Then, they separated without any movement. In fact, with the strength of the two, a fierce battle might not destroy the Blue Sea Star, but it would at least have terrible consequences. Although the Cerulean Sea Star was a level 9 life planet, it was not that easy to destroy. However, a battle between 2 legendary supremes would more or less cause some disasters. The previous battle had already caused tsunamis and dark clouds to cover the Cerulean Sea Star. Yi Chun, even if you are a peerless genius of a human race and a legendary supremacy, you have no right to insult another legendary supremacy. Where do you put the human race? Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you have the strength? The Juyong Heavenly Sovereign was surprised to see Yi Chun block his punch and scathed. Then, he put on a serious face and put a big hat on Yi Chun. In his opinion, Yi Chun really didn't know what was good for him. You should say that to Supreme Skyhook. Everyone here knows what Supreme Skyhook has done. I don't need to say anything more. Yi Chun said coldly. What did Supreme Skyhook do? What proof do you have? The Juyong Heavenly Sovereign asked Yi Chun. Yes, what did I do? Yan Qingxian personally agreed to this wedding. I didn't force her at all. Even if you are her good friend, you shouldn't go against her wishes. Or should I say, you like her, but she chose to marry me. You feel uncomfortable. Of course, this is just my guess. Supreme Skyhook was emboldened to see that the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign was backing him up. He questioned Yi Chun. He didn't believe that Yi Chun really wanted to fall out with the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign. Shameless. Dugu Ju cursed under his breath. Yi Chun threw his head back and laughed. His laughter spread throughout the Blue Sea Star. Hearing this laughter, everyone was confused. But Supreme Skyhook and the Juyong Heavenly Sovereign were a little scared. Ha 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 ha. Yi Chun kept laughing. Yi Chun, what are you laughing at? The Juyong Heavenly Sovereign shouted angrily. The laughter stopped. Yi Chun said disdainfully, I'm laughing at all of you. Of course, if I was just an ordinary legendary supremacy, you might have succeeded. However, you've forgotten something. My strength is far above yours. You have no right to reason with me. 9 Suns Heavenly Venerate. Since you're standing up for him, I'll capture you two and lock you up for 100 years. If you're not satisfied, you can all come at me. As soon as he finished his last sentence, a 5-colored green lotus suddenly appeared with him as the center. The lotus grew larger and larger, covering the entire Blue Sea Star in an instant. The sea of Blue Sea Star, which was originally filled with tsunamis, suddenly calmed down. Not a single wave was produced, and all the lives in the Blue Sea Star came to a standstill. The entire world seemed to have gone silent. Impossible! The Juyong Heavenly Sovereign roared. He found that his strength had been suppressed by more than 1,000 times. He couldn't even use 1,000th of his strength. Supreme Skyhook was even worse. He was directly pressed to the ground. High-level supremacies couldn't even resist the power of the Green Lotus Sword Domain. 9th tier Sword Domain. How is this possible? At the same time, the other legendary supremes were also astonished. As for those below legendary supremes, they didn't even have the chance to speak. In front of the 9th layer Sword Domain, They didn't have the slightest bit of battle power. If Yi Chun wanted to kill them, all he had to do was wave his hand. This was the frightening power of the ninth layer sword domain. When a power reached its limit, it could dominate everything. Is this his true strength? Supreme Seven Moon was dumbfounded. She had been worried about Yi Chun, but now she could only smile bitterly. With such strength, there was no need to worry about him. Even if everyone joined forces, they wouldn't be his match. Roar! Sky Splitter shook his head and roared, his eyes filled with disdain. These idiots dared to go against their master. They were simply courting death. Step by step, he walked toward Supreme Skyhook. Yi Chun grabbed his neck and lifted him up. Then, he walked towards the Jiang Heavenly Sovereign. Yi Chun, what are you doing? The Jiang Heavenly Sovereign was afraid. He didn't even have 1,000th of his strength. Swish! With a teleportation, Yi Chun appeared in front of the Jiang Heavenly Sovereign. He sent him flying with a sword strike, and then appeared behind him at an even faster speed, grabbing his neck. Being grabbed by this hand, the Jiang Heavenly Sovereign's body went limp. He couldn't use any of his strength. In terms of strength, he couldn't even be compared to the leaders of the 5 tribes. But Yi Chun could easily kill Sea Fiend and Evil Light. Chapter 1402. The Nine Suns' Heavenly Venerate's face was ashen. He was a peak legendary supremacy, but he couldn't even retaliate against Yi Chun. Why was it like this? It shouldn't be like this. The Nine Suns' Heavenly Venerate unintentionally glanced at everyone present, and his face turned even paler. He felt like he was a puppy being held by the other party, unable to struggle. Supreme Skyhook was even worse than the Jiang Heavenly Sovereign. He closed his eyes, not wanting to see the gazes of the crowd, because those gazes would break him down. A strong sense of regret surged in his heart. If he had known that Yi Chun was so monstrous, he wouldn't have provoked Yin Qing Xian, even if he had 100 guts. But who knew that in just a few hundred years, he had grown to such a terrifying level? Was he still human? Supreme Yi, we're all from the Human Alliance. Why don't we just let it go? A supreme being that came out of the Moro Death Prison stood out and said, "That's right, Supreme Exalt Yi. One should forgive and forget whenever possible. They didn't commit any major crimes, so why must you be so ruthless? Supreme Yi, although your strength is monstrous, imprisoning 2 legendary supremes is too much. It's better to leave some leeway." Those who spoke up for Heavenly Venerate 9 Suns and Supremacy Skyhook were all supremacies who had come out of the Moro Death Prison. Their intentions were simple. They wanted to pressure Yi Chun with their power. If Yi Chun released Heavenly Venerate 9 Suns and Supremacy Skyhook, that would naturally be the best outcome. However, if Yi Chun continued to be domineering and unreasonable, once Sword Sage White Pole came out of seclusion, he would be in deep trouble. Yi Chun said lightly, "If you do something wrong, you have to bear the corresponding consequences. If you do something wrong and there is no punishment at all, how can a Human Alliance fight against the Demon's Alliance? Nothing can be accomplished without rules. Imprisoning them today is also for their own good. You don't have to say anything. I know what I'm doing." With Yi Chun as the center, invisible space-time energy swept out, enveloping Sky Splitter, 7 Moons, Martial Supremacy, Golden Buddha Supremacy, and Dugu Ju. In the next moment, the 5 of them and 1 beast disappeared without a trace. Too arrogant. The supreme martial artists who came out of the Moro Death Prison were indignant. Just wait and see. When Sword Saint by Ji comes out of seclusion, he will definitely punish him. That's right. Other than Lord Sword Saint by Ji, no one else has the right to imprison an honorable. He's playing with fire. Whoosh! Somewhere in the starry sky of the White Tiger Star Field, time and space distorted as Yi Chun and the others emerged. Supreme True Martial and Supreme Golden Buddha felt like they were in a dream. Supreme True Martial asked, "Yi Chun, what level is your strength now? Are you a demigod?" In his opinion, someone who could easily capture the 9 Sun Heavenly Venerate had to be a quasi-demigod. Yi Chun shook his head. "A demigod is much stronger than me. I should be considered a peak legendary supremacy. Without using the Firmament Sword, Yi Chun would be at this level. Once he used the Firmament Sword, Yi Chen's strength would be at the demigod level, just as Supreme True Martial had said. However, he didn't want to reveal the firmament sword. He still didn't know what kind of person Sword Saint by Ji was. After all, they both use swords. Excellent. Supreme Yi has such achievements at such a young age. You are comparable to a true god when they were young. Supreme Golden Buddha put his palms together and smiled. Those who could become true gods were all the kings of geniuses. Ordinary geniuses couldn't be compared to them. You flatter me. I only reached my current level because of a fortuitous encounter. Yi Chen said humbly, it's normal to have fortuitous encounters. Without them, there would be no true gods in this world. We all have fortuitous encounters, but our achievements are far from yours. Supreme True Martial was very emotional. Who didn't have fortuitous encounters? However, no matter how good the fortuitous encounters were, one had to have enough potential and talent. It didn't mean that one could achieve great things just by encountering a great fortuitous encounter. If there was such a good thing, the legendary supremacies in the universe would be running away in dissatisfaction. Yi Chen, what do you plan to do with the two of them? Supreme True Martial asked. Yi Chen said, Supreme Skyhook will be locked up for 100 years. Heavenly Venerable Juyong will be locked up for 10 years. Supreme True Martial nodded. Don't worry. I will speak up for Sword Saint by Ji. Supreme Skyhook had gone too far this time. He only had himself to blame for this result. Dugu Ju, I didn't expect you to become a supremacy after a few hundred years. Yi Chen looked at Dugu Ju. Dugu Ju said, if I don't become a supremacy soon, you will leave me in the dust. However, I still can't compare to you. Yi Chen smiled and said to everyone, I have gained a lot from this adventure. These sage artifacts are one of my gains. I will give them to you. Yi Chen took out 7 sage artifacts. 3 were offensive sage artifacts, and 4 were defensive sage artifacts. So many sage artifacts. Supreme True Martial was dumbfounded. Before this, there were no more than 10 sage artifacts in the universe. They were in the hands of the strongest people of each race. How could he not be shocked when Yi Chen took out 7 sage artifacts at once? Supreme Yi, this is too precious. Supreme Golden Buddha said hesitantly. Yi Chen said, I still have some. Since I have no use for extra sage artifacts, you can at least increase your strength. Supreme Yi, then I won't stand on ceremony. Supreme Seven Moons was overjoyed. She was a peak supremacy. With an offensive and defensive sage artifact, her battle strength was definitely comparable to a mid-level supremacy. Since that's the case, we'll gladly accept. Basically, no one could refuse a sage artifact. Supreme True Martial already had the True Martial Divine Truncheon, so Yi Chen gave him a sage artifact armor. His original armor was broken and definitely not as good as a complete one. However, among everyone, Supreme Golden Buddha's strength increased the most. His Golden Body 9th Refinement stage could block the attacks of a mid-level legendary supremacy. Now that he had a Sage Artifact armor, he could block the attacks of a peak legendary supremacy. He could even protect himself against the 9 Suns Heavenly Venerable. That was the benefit of having a high defense. Whoosh! Dugu Ju held his silver-white saber in his hand. He slashed with it, and the saber light swept across the entire universe. Good saber, Dugu Ju praised. He couldn't bear to part with it. The news of Yi Chen's domineering return and the capture of the 9 Suns, Heavenly Venerable, and Supreme Sky Hook spread throughout the Human Race Alliance. It even spread to the Demons Alliance, shocking the entire universe. Everyone knew that other than Sword Sage Baiji and Demon Sage Jialo, Yi Chen was definitely the #1 supremacy. No one could defeat him. Yi Chen finally had his own title, Sword Sage Green Lotus. Due to the fact that the sword domain Yi Chen had released was a 5-color green lotus, he had obtained this title. As for Yin Qingxian, she had already returned to normal. Under Yi Chen's coercion, Supreme Sky Hook told him everything. He knew that if he didn't say anything, Yi Chen would definitely torture him. No one knew when Sword Sage Baiji would come out of seclusion. If Yi Chen killed him in a rage, his death would be in vain. Sword Sage Baiji would at most imprison Yi Chen. Chapter 1403, Black Tortoise Starfield. All of you listen up. You have 1 month to move out of the Black Tortoise Starfield. After 1 month, you will be killed without mercy. On this day, in the vast Black Tortoise Starfield, a mighty voice reverberated. It was Yi Chen's voice. Through the amplification of the power of space and time, Yi Chen's voice could travel far, far away, tens of thousands of light years, or even hundreds of thousands of light years. Of course, this would take time to transmit. The larger the area, the later the people at the edge of the area would hear the voice. If the voice was gathered into a single beam, Yi Chen could transmit it through space and time to a certain location in the demon domain. Perfected space and time profound had always been terrifying. It could achieve many things that were impossible in the past. In fact, Yi Chen could also take advantage of the time when Demon Saint Gallo was in closed-door cultivation to slaughter the Supremes of the Demons Alliance. With his strength, there was no need to worry about accidents. It would definitely be a one-sided sweep. However, he had his own considerations. Although Demon Saint Gallo was in closed-door cultivation, he was still a demigod. If he went too far, it was very likely that he would provoke the Demon Saint to kill him at all costs. At that time, even with Sword Saint White Pole, he might not be safe. Of course, even if he did not slaughter the Supremes of the Demons Alliance, Demon Saint Gallo would probably still want to kill him, but at least it would be less. Comparing the two, Yi Chen naturally chose the latter. In any case, with his strength, other than Demon Saint Gallo, he did not need to be afraid of anyone. Once a war broke out, Sword Saint White Pole would stop Demon Saint Gallo, and the remaining Supremes of the Demons Alliance combined would not be his opponent. This was a foregone conclusion. The various races of the Demons Alliance that had already taken root in the Black Tortoise Starfield were very unwilling. The Black Tortoise Starfield was rich in resources. After 1,000 years, they had already taken root here. Their descendants had already gotten used to the life here. Suddenly moving to another place was hard for anyone to accept. However, Sword Venerable Green Lotus was known as the #1 Supremes in the universe. They dared not joke around with their lives. Damn it, why should we move? In the Black Tortoise Starfield, a Supremes bellowed. Supreme Demon Blood, there's nothing you can do unless you can defeat Sword Venerable Green Lotus. Revered Swordsman Green Lotus? I don't believe he's the #1 Supreme being in the universe. Maybe he's just bragging. We haven't seen it with our own eyes. There's a chance that it's just boasting, but who's going to test it out? In any case, I don't dare. I'm just a super supreme being. A large number of puppet warships appeared in the Black Tortoise Galaxy's space. The moving work was in progress. However, not a single puppet warship had departed yet. Everyone was waiting. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, rumor has it that you are the #1 supremacy in the universe. I, Empyrean Evil Thunder, have come to seek guidance. The legendary Supreme of the Demons Alliance, Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder, had appeared. Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder was a peak legendary paragon of the evil spirit race. His strength was not inferior to Heavenly Venerable Nine Suns. In the previous battle, he had suppressed Heavenly Venerable Nine Sun from beginning to end, causing him to be in a sorry state. I accept your challenge. Space-time fluctuated, and Yi Chen appeared. Accompanying Yi Chen's appearance was a 5-colored green lotus. 9th level sword domain. Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder was shocked as he was enveloped by the 5-colored green lotus. So what if it's the 9th level sword domain? Have a taste of my Evil Thunder Divine Palm. Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder's hands were pitch black, and dark clouds surged. Large amounts of lightning rushed out, flashing toward Yi Chen. The lightning increased until it turned into a sea of lightning. Coupled with Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder's Evil Thunder Domain, it was simply invincible, wave after wave attacking Yi Chen. Black Hole Stance. With just one sword strike, Yi Chen completely neutralized Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder's attack. It was as if the sea of lightning in the starry sky had never appeared. Heavy Sword Stance. With the second sword strike, Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder perished. Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder was not like Heavenly Venerable Sea Fiend and Heavenly Venerable Evil Light, nor was he comparable to the leaders of the 5 major tribes. Not only were the former stronger, but he also had a sage artifact armor. Heavenly Venerable Evil Thunder had nothing at all, so how could he block Yi Chen's attack? After this battle, the universe was shaken. Even without Yi Chen's threat, the evacuation of the Black Tortoise Star Field sped up thousands of times. Every day, hundreds of millions of puppet battleships set off, filled with members of various races. The Human Race Alliance was shocked beyond words. Although Yi Chen wasn't as strong as Sword Saint White Pole, he had accomplished something that Sword Saint White Pole couldn't. With a single order, the enemy retreated. How awe-inspiring. Some people even wondered if, with Yi Chen's strength, if the Moro Death Prison and Black Wind Stream hadn't been opened, could he have completely destroyed the Demon's Alliance, or even driven them into the world of life, allowing the Human Race Alliance to unify the entire universe and make the human race the overlord of the world? No matter how they thought about it, everyone felt that it was highly possible. Unfortunately, imagination was just imagination. There was still Demon Saint White Pole and Demon Saint White Pole above them. In history, a situation where one side was very strong while the other side was very weak rarely occurred. A month later, the Black Tortoise Star Field became an empty star field. The members of the Demon's Alliance had all moved away, leaving not a single one behind. Of course, there were still some who had slipped through the net. Some had been forgotten, and some were still adventuring in the secret realms. Yi Chen didn't need to worry about this. Staying in the human territory meant that they were destined to become hunting targets. Racial wars had always been this cruel. The 3 major life star fields began to send people to the Black Tortoise Star Field. Every day, there were hundreds of millions of people heading over. A new place contained a new order. This was the best time to develop their forces. The Yi family and the Fallout Sword sect also sent a large number of people to the Black Tortoise Star Field. As Yi Chen's status rose, the Yi family and the Fallout Sword sect developed rapidly. Their population grew rapidly as well. In a situation where there were too many monks and not enough gruel, the Yi family and the Fallout Sword sect naturally needed to occupy more space to give their core members a chance to display their abilities. Regarding these things, Yi Chen didn't care, and he didn't want to care. In the blink of an eye, 100 years had passed since Yi Chen's return. Su Jing and Murong Qingshen were both at the peak of 8th layer life and death realm, only a step away from becoming supremes. However, this step had stumped countless geniuses. Yi Chen had no way to help them become supremes. They could only rely on themselves. Fortunately, with their talents, becoming supremes was only a matter of time. There was no need to rush. 9 Suns Heavenly Sovereign had been released 90 years ago. On this day, Yi Chen also released Supreme Skyhook. Supreme Skyhook were both supremes of the human race. If you're not convinced, feel free to come at me. Yi Chen, will take them all on. I hope you know what to do. Before releasing Supreme Skyhook, Yi Chen left a few words for him. Soon, another 100 years passed. On this day, in a certain part of the starry sky, a bright sword light illuminated millions of light years. Sword Saint White Pole had come out of seclusion. The Supremes of the Human Race Alliance promptly went to congratulate him. Yi Chen was no exception. Chapter 1404. The White Pole Sword Sage was a refined middle-aged man dressed in white. Only Yi Chen could vaguely tell how strong the sword chi on his body was. He had already fused his sword chi with his aura. After being nurtured by his aura, his sword chi was no longer as hard and sharp as before. His aura had also been tempered by the sword chi and appeared to be pure, without any impurities. As such, the White Pole Sword Sage did not look like a swordsman, but more like a scholar with a pure aura. However, if anyone dared to underestimate the White Pole Sword Sage, they would regret being born in this world. The place where the White Pole Sword Saint had secluded himself was an ordinary planet. When he came out of seclusion, the planet turned into dust with a poof. After so many years, the planet had long been corroded into sand by the White Pole Sword Saint's sword chi. With a wave of his hand, the yellow sand gathered in the White Pole Sword Sage's hand and turned into a khaki-colored sword. Seeing this scene, everyone could not help but gasp. The weight of a planet was actually compressed into a sword by the white pole sword sage. This had destroyed the balance of the universe. The one who felt it the most was naturally Yi Chun. There were strong and weak demigods. From Yi Chun's point of view, the white pole sword sage had clearly not reached the stage of condensing god power and probably had not comprehended the power of laws. Even so, to compress a planet's mass of sand into a sword was enough to leave any legendary supremacy in the dust. "Welcome, Lord Sword Sage." Everyone cheered in unison. The white pole sword sage walked over with a smile. "Thank you." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Chun, whom he had never met before, and said with a smile, "You must be the legendary Yi Chun. Hearing about you is not as good as meeting you in person. The last time I spoke of you, you were only a super supremacy. Now, you are already a legendary supremacy. Lord Sword Sage is too kind. Yi Chun is just a little lucky. At our level, who doesn't understand that luck is for those who are prepared?" It was obvious that the white pole sword sage thought very highly of Yi Chun. Heavenly Venerate Nine Yang and Supremacy Sky Hook looked uncertain. They seemed to want to say something, but they swallowed their words. Sword Sage White Pole glanced at Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun and Supremacy Sky Hook and suddenly said, "Don't think that I don't know anything just because I was in seclusion. I know exactly what you have done. I just wanted to see what your bottom line is. Unfortunately, you have disappointed me." Sword Saint Bai Ji's words shocked everyone. It turned out that everything was under the white pole sword saint's control. That made sense. They were really stupid. Although a demigod was not a true god, since he was a demigod, he definitely had extraordinary means and abilities. It was not something that they could speculate about. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun and Supremacy Sky Hook turned pale. Lord Sword Sage, Nine Sun's knows his mistake. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun hurriedly admitted his mistake. Originally, he still had some complaints about Yi Chun. Now, he no longer had any complaints. He wished that Yi Chun could imprison him for a few more days, as long as Sword Sage White Pole did not have any prejudice against him. "Lord Sword Sage, everything is my fault. I am willing to accept my punishment." Supremacy Skyhook was also very straightforward. At this moment, if he did not know when to back down, he would really be asking for it. With a light snort, White Extreme Sword Saint said, "Since Supreme, Yi Chun has already imprisoned you. I won't act in your stead any longer. You'd better behave yourselves. If you offend again in the future, you'll be punished twice." "Lord Sword Sage, don't worry. I will not do it again in the future." Both of them heaved a sigh of relief. They still had lingering fears. "All right, you can go back. Yi Chun, you stay." Sword Sage White Pole left Yi Chun behind and let the others leave first. Soon, only Sword Sage White Pole and Yi Chun were left in the cosmos. Sword Sage White Pole waved the earth yellow sword in his hand and said to Yi Chun, "Yi Chun, do you know what the levels of a demigod are?" "No." Yi Chun shook his head. When a silver martial path Yuan spirit transforms into a gold martial path Yuan spirit, one becomes a demigod. According to the level of the gold martial path Yuan spirit, the demigods are divided into beginner, intermediate, high, peak, and so on. I am just a beginner demigod, and so is Demon Sage Gallows. Isn't that a little surprising? Sword Sage White Pole said with a smile. A little. Sword Sage White Pole and Demon Sage Gallows have been imprisoned for countless years. Yi Chun had thought that the two of them were already not weak among the demigods. Sword Sage White Pole continued. The gold martial path Yuan spirit is also known as the eternal martial path Yuan spirit. Once it reaches the perfect level, it can exist for eternity. It is close to or equivalent to a true god. Therefore, every increase in the gold martial path Yuan spirit is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. It is harder and harder to become a demigod. If nothing goes wrong, I will stop at the beginner demigod level for the rest of my life. Who can predict what will happen in the future? Yi Chun said. Perhaps, but not everyone can become a supporting character or even a main character. Raising his head to look at the starry sky, Sword Sage White Pole said, do you know how the Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison were formed? Yichun raised his eyebrows and listened quietly. The Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison were created by the will of the universe. Every million years, as long as one's martial path Yuan spirit reaches the bronze level, they will be imprisoned in these two prisons. Only those whose martial path Yuan spirit has not reached the bronze level are spared. Demigods are no exception. If they do not want to be imprisoned, the only way is to leave the universe within a million years. This is also why the demigods in history only appear briefly before disappearing. It is because they have all left this universe. Sword Sage White Pole revealed an earth-shattering secret. Hearing this, Yichun was very surprised. The Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison were actually created by the will of the universe. If Sword Sage White Pole had not told him, he would not have known at all. Now that he thought about it, everything was quite reasonable. The will of the universe created these two prisons and handed them over to the human race and the demons respectively. After countless years, the origins of these two prisons gradually became unknown. A million years was enough for the human race alliance and the demons alliance to give birth to new supremes. Other than that, this also explained why the seals of the Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison were automatically opened. Of course, apart from most of them being imprisoned by the will of the universe, there were also many who were imprisoned artificially. After all, the Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison were controlled by the human race and the demons respectively. Why would the will of the universe do this? Yichun asked. Sword Sage White Pole shook his head. I'm not sure either. However, I'm guessing that this should be a measure to protect itself. The universe has a limit. When a number of supremes reaches a certain level, the universe itself will also have to endure a lot of pressure. As for the demigods, they're constantly being suppressed by the will of the universe and are unable to go all out. How many years are left until the million-year deadline? Yichun asked again. There are about 120,000 years left. The time for the Black Wind Stream and the Mora Death Prison to open their seals is not fixed. This time, it is slightly earlier. Chapter 1405. 120,000 years? That's not short. Yichun was only 1,000 years old. 120,000 years was too long for him. Of course, for those below the level of supremacy, 120,000 years was definitely a lifetime. Sword Saint Bai Ji shook his head. Strictly speaking, it's only 20,000 years. After 20,000 years, those whose martial primordial spirits have reached the bronze level will be sent to the chaos battlefield. There are not only supremacies of our universe there, but also supremacies of other universes. There are 3 outcomes for entering. One is to be killed, one is to survive and be sealed in the Black Wind Stream or the Mora Death Prison, and one is to become a member of the Heavenly Realm. Chaos Battlefield, Heavenly Realm member? This was the first time Yichun had heard of these two terms. He was very curious. The Chaos Battlefield is connected to many universes. Becoming a member of the Heavenly Realm is the most basic requirement to enter. Legend has it that the Heavenly Realm is a supreme world higher than any other universe. Even true gods go there. No one knew when it started, but the universe could no longer give birth to true gods. To become a true god, one had to go to the Heavenly Realm. Otherwise, although demigods had a long lifespan, they would eventually run out under the pressure of the universe's will. Apart from that, life without opponents was too lonely. Everyone was curious, and curiosity was a powerful source of motivation. Do I have to go to the chaos battlefield after 20,000 years? It's not that I have to. Under the pressure of the universe's will, even I can't resist. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been imprisoned in the Mora Death Prison. Sword Saint Bai Ji smiled bitterly. Nodding, Yichun suddenly said, Sword Saint Bai Ji, have you heard of the Wilderness God Continent? There were too many supremacies in the Wilderness God Continent. Even all the supremacies in the universe added up couldn't compare to the number of supremacies in one tribe. Wilderness God Continent? You came back from there? No wonder. Sword Saint Bai Ji understood and continued. Of course I have. The Wilderness God Continent was created by the oldest true god of our universe, the Wilderness God. It contains the wilderness god's rules. Even the universes can't interfere with anything on the wilderness god continent. Even the universes can't interfere? Yes, there are strong and weak true gods. The wild god is one of the most ancient and powerful true gods. His will is on the same level as the will of the universe. However, it is also because of this that the people of the wild god continent are unable to leave the wild god continent. If you stay on the wild god continent for too long, it is very likely that you will be assimilated by the wild god continent, making it difficult for you to leave the wild god continent in the future. The White Pole Sword Sage knew countless times more than Yi Chun. This was something that could not be achieved through talent and comprehension. It could only be achieved through the accumulation of time. Compared to the White Pole Sword Sage, Yi Chun's age was nothing more than the time he spent in seclusion. It was impossible for him to know too much in such a short amount of time. The primal chaos battlefield is extremely dangerous, and there are many demigods there. You should take advantage of the 20,000 years you have left to strengthen yourself. The more you have, the more protection you will have. Sword Saint White Pole said. Yi Chun nodded. 20,000 years might seem like a long time, but at his realm and strength, it was not that easy to improve further. However, as Sword Saint White Pole said, the more you have, the more protection you will have. Within 20,000 years, it was not impossible to improve further, but it would be very difficult. One was a human demigod, and the other was the strongest sovereign of the human race. The two of them chatted as they strolled through the 4 major life star regions. Occasionally, they would land on some nameless planet. Sword Saint White Pole, Yi Chun will take his leave first. On a neutron star, the chess game ended, and Yi Chun stood up to bid farewell. All right, let's meet again when we have time in the future. Sword Saint White Pole smiled and stood up. Definitely. Space-time distorted, and Yi Chun disappeared without a trace. The gravity of the neutron star did not bind him at all. What a heaven-defying monster. He has the strength of a peak legendary sovereign when he is only at the beginner legendary sovereign realm. Compared to him, I was only born a few million years earlier. Sword Saint White Pole sighed. When one's martial primordial spirit reached the bronze level, one would be a super sovereign. When it reached the silver level, one would be a legendary sovereign, and when it reached the gold level, one would be a demigod. Legendary sovereigns were divided into 5 cultivation levels according to the strength of the silver martial primordial spirit: beginner legendary sovereign, intermediate legendary sovereign, high legendary sovereign, peak legendary sovereign, and quasi-demigod. Although Yi Chun was a peak legendary sovereign, in terms of cultivation, he was only a beginner legendary sovereign. Under normal circumstances, it was already very good for a beginner legendary sovereign to have the strength of an intermediate legendary sovereign. This meant that he was more outstanding in a certain aspect. For someone like Yi Chun, he had to be outstanding in all aspects. Otherwise, his strength would not be able to cross 3 levels. There were still 20,000 years before they entered the primal chaos battlefield. Sword Saint White Pole and Demon Saint Galwa were not in the mood to fight. This made the human race alliance and the demons alliance unprecedentedly peaceful. Time flew, and the first 1,000 years had passed. The human race alliance had a new sovereign, lifeless saber, Sovereign Lung Fifan. Of course, after becoming a sovereign, his title became Lifeless Saber Sovereign. The second 1,000 years had passed, and Yi Chun had pushed his spiritual body to the middle stage of the 9th level. The price he had to pay was a large amount of heavenly and earthly treasures, some from the Milky Way, some from hell, and some from some unknown secret realms. Collecting heavenly and earthly treasures for 2,000 years to raise my spiritual body from the early stage of the 9th level to the middle stage of the 9th level. It's really difficult. Hell and the Milky Way were filled with endless dangers. Even with Yi Chun's strength, he had to be careful and advance step by step. During this period, he had also encountered water monsters that surpassed the 4th level 3 times and legendary ghost lords 4 times. If not for the protection of the Black Tortoise Sacred Armor, Yi Chun might not have been able to escape unscathed. The former had the home ground advantage, while the latter was wary of Yi Chen's netherworld sacred eye. However, as the sovereign of Hell, the Ghost Lords had a very close relationship with Hell. They were equivalent to a part of Hell. This caused Yi Chen's netherworld sacred eye to not be able to completely suppress the Ghost Lords. At most, it could slightly suppress the other party's hellish will. As the number of times he entered and exited the Milky Way and Hell increased, Yi Chen gradually understood some things about the Milky Way and Hell. The Milky Way was a link to Hell. Without this link, even demigods could not enter Hell. Some of the Ghost Lords in Hell were actually sovereigns of the universe. There is also a Phoenix Ghost Sage who was once one of the ancestors of the Phoenix race and had the purest Phoenix blood. Although he had the Netherworld's sacred eye and was not suppressed in Hell, and instead enjoyed many benefits, Yi Chen did not dare to be too reckless. He felt that the forces in Hell were much stronger than those in the universe. Even the Wild's continent could not compare to it, if not for the fact that the ghosts and Ghost Lords in Hell could not leave Hell, just like the Wild's continent, who knew what the universe would be like. And in Hell, Yi Chen accidentally heard news about the first demon lord with the bloodline of the great demon king. He had a good relationship with a ghost sage in Hell, heaven-slaughtering ghost sage. Chapter 1406. My father is imprisoned in Hell. Hearing Yi Chen's words, Su Jing was extremely shocked. Before the Moro Death Prison and Black Windstream seals were opened, she thought that her father would be imprisoned in the Moro Death Prison. However, after the prison was opened, there were no Gold Supreme Warriors among the Supreme Warriors, which made her very disappointed. Now that Yi Chen had told her about her father, she was astonished, but at the same time, her heart was filled with boundless expectation. She, who had reached the peak of the eighth sky of life and death realm, had already recovered her lost memories. She could clearly remember everything that had happened before she was 10 years old. However, what made her feel strange was that her mother's image was always that of a black shadow. She didn't know whether it was because her memory was incomplete or not. Whether he is imprisoned in Hell or not, I'm not completely sure. But from the rumors, there is indeed a supreme level gold dragon imprisoned in the Dragon Mountain. Before becoming a supreme warrior, Yi Chen couldn't contact the upper echelons of Hell at all. After becoming a supreme warrior, especially the number one supreme warrior in the universe, he also had some connections in Hell. After all, he was not completely unrelated to Hell. The appearance of the Netherworld's sacred eye proved that he was favored by Hell. Of course, he was not the only one who was favored. Perhaps, with the Netherworld's sacred eye, the bloodline of the great demon king seemed to be favored even more. Perhaps, the bloodline of the great demon king had some deep relationship with Hell. Then what do you plan to do? Su Jing naturally knew that Hell was extremely dangerous. Even demigods wouldn't dare to act recklessly there. Yi Chen said, "Don't worry, I will save your father. But I will need your essence blood to refine a sensing compass to sense the Dragon Mountain and your father's location." The Dragon Mountain was an ancient mountain that existed in the depths of Hell space-time. Its location was unknown. Even if Yi Chen's space-time profound was completed and he had the Netherworld's sacred eye, he still wouldn't be able to find it without knowing its location. Unless he went to ask the ancient ghost kings of Hell, but those old guys were too dangerous. Yi Chen didn't want to look for trouble. No problem. Su Jing nodded. A year later, Yi Chen used Su Jing's essence blood and other precious materials to refine a golden sensory compass. There are different grades of sensory compasses. Yi Chen had refined an Emperor Grade 1, while the highest grade was Supreme. Once again, Yi Chen came to the Infernal Realm and took out the golden compass. After injecting the sword Origin into it, the needle spun crazily before finally pointing to the east. Putting away the compass, Yi Chen flew toward the east. Along the way, Yi Chen took out the golden compass several times and pointed it to the east every time. 2 years passed. The feeling is getting stronger and stronger. Almost there. In the past, the needle would spin many times before pointing to the east. Recently, the needle would spin 1 or 2 times before returning to normal. Another 3 months passed, and the needle pointed to the west, which meant that Yi Chen had passed his destination. Going back a little, the needle began to spin infinitely. It's here. Yichen looked around and realized that this place was surrounded by mountains, with only a plain in the middle. It was not normal at all. According to the terrain, there should be a huge mountain in the middle of the mountains, which should be the leader of the mountains. Activating the Netherworld Sacred Eye, Yichen's vision could see through the endless space-time. Soon, he found a huge, ancient mountain in the depths of the space-time. It was really bigger than a life planet. Locking onto this ancient mountain, Yichen's figure spread out and entered the depths of the space-time. Swish! After a while, Yichen arrived at the foot of the ancient mountain. This mountain was undulating like a trapped old dragon, which was quite ominous. There was a ghost temple on the mountainside, which was full of ghostly shadows, which made people feel uneasy. Uncle, I hope we are fated to meet in the Dragon Mountain. Otherwise, there won't be a chance. After another 18,000 years, Yichen would definitely enter the primal chaos battlefield. This time, he finally found some clues. If not, Yichen really didn't know where to find a Golden Supremes. Just as he was about to go up the mountain, the ghost temple on the mountain suddenly erupted with energy. Two 10,000 jong tall ghost kings with green faces and fangs jumped out. How dare you? Dragon Mountain is an important place in hell. Leave quickly. Human beings also dare to come to Dragon Mountain. I think it's better not to leave. Their voices were like rolling thunder, reverberating in the sky above Yichen. You two little devils, you don't even have a little bit of eyesight. Serves you right to guard this mountain. Yichen blew out a breath, and a black gale rolled out, blowing the two ghost monarchs into a sorry state. If it was an ordinary Supremes here, even if their cultivation was one level higher than the Ghost Kings, they still wouldn't be able to contend against them. The main reason was that the ghosts and Ghost Kings in hell were useless against them. Only soul attacks or willpower attacks could hurt them. These two attacks were only supplementary methods, so how could they be the trump cards of the Supremes? Yichen had the Netherworld Sacred Eye, so his attacks contained the willpower of hell. To him, there was no difference between being in hell and outside. He could use his full strength. Who are you? Do you think you can run amok in hell just because you have some tricks up your sleeve? At this time, a ghostly big hand flew out of the ghost temple and grabbed towards Yichen. I am Green Lotus Sword Venerable Yichen. Who are you in hell? The heavenly sword was unsheathed, and Yichen slashed the ghost hand in half. I'm a 3 Ghost King. I am ordered to guard Dragon Mountain. I advise you to leave quickly. My master is not someone you can mess with. A pale middle-aged man with an ancient face walked out of the ghost temple and said in a loud voice. Yichen said, Dare I ask, is the one imprisoned in Dragon Mountain the Supremes of the Dragon Tribe? The 3 Ghost Kings said, Dragon Mountain imprisons countless prisoners. I can't even recognize all the ancient ones. How would I know who you were talking about? He hasn't been imprisoned for long, maybe a few thousand to 10,000 years. Well, let me see. The 3 Ghost King took out a book and flipped through it. Soon he stopped. There is indeed a Supremes of the Dragon Tribe imprisoned 9,000 years ago. Unfortunately, he will be imprisoned for 1,000,000 years. Not even 10,000 years have passed. You should leave and come back after 990,000 years. Putting away the book, the 3 Ghost King warned. Imprisoned for 1,000,000 years? Sorry, I can't wait that long. May I ask, why is he imprisoned in Dragon Mountain? Do we have to be imprisoned when we come to hell? Yichen questioned. Of course not. He violated the taboo of Lord 9. That is why he is imprisoned. What taboo? After his beloved wife died, she became hell's ghostly lord, Red Lotus Ghostly Lord. I don't know where he got the news, but he came to hell to take Red Lotus Ghostly Lord away. Unfortunately, once he becomes a ghostly lord, all memories of his past life are gone. It is a new beginning. Red Lotus Ghostly Lord naturally refused to go with him. Lord 9 could not bear it and imprisoned him in Dragon Mountain. Chapter 1407. After becoming a ghostly lord, his memories would be wiped clean. A new beginning? Yichen frowned and asked, Can people go to hell after they die? However, the moment they arrive in hell, they are no longer their original selves, but a new life. The difference is that according to their cultivation base, their strength in hell after death is also different. When an ordinary person dies in hell, they are merely a ball of chilly wind, which can easily dissipate. The stronger ones are a ball of fire, and the stronger ones can become ghosts, such as impermanence ghosts, nether ghosts, yellow springs ghosts, and so on. As for supremes, they might not necessarily become ghost monarchs. Perhaps they really die, and only a few supremes can become ghost monarchs, beginning their second life. Yi Chun glanced at Yi Chun. Indeed, after death, any life form will enter hell. But the moment they enter hell, they will no longer be their original self. The three dark, ghostly lord had explained so much because he felt that Yi Chun was not someone to be trifled with. Since he could find Dragon Mountain, he must be a heaven-defying sovereign. Who is your lord? Is it the 9 ghostly sage? Yi Chun guessed. As Yi Chun had expected, the three dark, ghostly lords said, "My lord is one of the 10 sages of hell, the 9 ghostly sage. I advise you to leave quickly, lest you seek trouble." It really is the 9 ghostly sage. There were 10 ghostly sages in hell. Of these 10 ghostly sages, 5 were transformed from demigods in the human world, while the other 5 were ghostly sages born in hell itself. They had nothing to do with the human world. Naturally, these 5 ghostly sages were exceptionally strong, much stronger than those transformed from demigods. The 9 ghostly sage was one of them. With a smile, Yi Chun suddenly said, "You've told me so much. I'm guessing that your lord is not in his territory." The three dark, ghostly lords' expression changed. "What do you want?" "Nothing much. I just want you to release that dragon supremacy. I can guarantee that he will not disturb your lord in the future." Yi Chun had made up his mind. Even if it meant offending the 9 ghostly sage, he would rescue the golden supremacy. "You dare?" The three dark, ghostly lord was enraged. He had said so much to Yi Chun, not wanting him to cause trouble. Otherwise, if the 9 ghostly sage returned, he would be in trouble. "Pardon me." Yi Chun had already seen the golden supreme martial artist through the protective formation. He was mining. The currency in the infernal realm was ghost stones, which were much more precious than primordial stones. Every mountain contained a certain amount of ghost stones. Obviously, Dragon Mountain was both a prison and a mine. Imprisoning criminals and mining ghost stones was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Boom! Yi Chun's sword slashed at the mountain guarding Grand Array. Heaven and earth shook, and the chilly wind roared. Countless ferocious-looking evil spirits were faintly discernible, as if they would pounce out at any time. What a powerful soul attack. When he attacked the mountain-protecting Great Array, a terrifying soul attack fell on Yi Chun's Sea of Soul. If it was an ordinary legend-ranked sovereign attacking this mountain-protecting Great Array, 8 or 9 out of 10 would be hit. If it was light, their soul would be seriously injured. If it was heavy, their soul would be obliterated. Yi Chun was only able to resist because his soul was exceptionally strong and he had the Netherworld's sacred eye. "Looks like I have to use the firmament sword." Sheathing the heavenly sword, Yi Chun pulled out the firmament sword. The firmament sword was a 3-star heavenly sacred weapon. Once it was unsheathed, the peerless sword chi immediately surged with an earth-shattering aura. Heavy sword style. With the firmament sword in hand, Yi Chun's sword slashed at the Dragon Mountain guarding Grand Array. Seeing that the mountain guarding Grand Array was about to be split open, a huge face suddenly appeared on the mountain guarding Grand Array. "How dare you attack the array that I personally set up?" 9 ghostly sage. Yi Chun was shocked. Without another word, he immediately tore apart space and time, wanting to leave hell. He did not expect that the 9 ghostly sage would integrate a portion of his own power into the mountain guarding Grand Array. Once the mountain guarding Grand Array could not hold on any longer, this power would transform into the 9 ghostly sage. Trying to escape, the 9 ghostly sage laughed coldly. His hand grabbed out, and the entire sky and earth were covered in darkness. Heaven and earth roam. In these 2,000 years, Yi Chun had not wasted his time. Besides raising his spirit body from the early level 9 to the middle level 9, Yi Chen had also created a space-time movement technique, heaven and earth roam. Shwa shwa shwa. The space-time in hell twisted endlessly. Even the darkness was warped, and a faint sliver of light leaked out. Following the light, Yi Chen's figure swept out, rushing out of the nine ghostly sage's area of control. Oomph. The nine ghostly sage laughed coldly. With a flick of his left hand, a white light chased after Yi Chen. The white light was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it was behind Yi Chen. Yi Chen once again used his space-time movement technique, heaven and earth roam. His figure was like a fish shuttling through space and time, incomparably slippery. But the white light was like a maggot in his bones, and he could not shake it off. Once my bone-piercing nail appears, it will definitely nail your primordial spirit. The nine ghostly sage was very confident in his methods. In the entire hell, or even the outside world, no one could dodge his bone-piercing nail, except for ghostly sages and demigods. Yi Chen naturally did not know what technique this white light was. He only knew that if he was hit by the white light, he would most likely be in trouble. The only way out was to disperse the white light. Under normal circumstances, he could not do that. At this moment, even if the nine ghostly sage was just a phantom, he was still not someone he could deal with. However, he had the firmament sword, a 3-star heavenly sacred treasure. Although he could not fully utilize the power of the firmament sword, it was also impossible for others to destroy the firmament sword. If he used the firmament sword to block the white light, he would definitely be able to bring out the true power of the firmament sword. Without much hesitation, Yi Chen turned and slashed at the white light. In that instant, Yi Chen and the white light froze. In the next instant, the white light twisted and dissipated, and Yi Chen was also sent flying. Along the way, space-time distorted, and his entire person disappeared without a trace. Heavenly sacred treasure. The nine ghostly sage's expression was ugly. Heavenly sacred treasures contained unimaginable power. Forcefully attacking a heavenly sacred treasure would only cause the heavenly sacred treasure to retaliate. The next time you come to hell, I will definitely catch you. The huge face blurred and gradually disappeared. From the depths of the sky river, a figure shot out. It was Yi Chen. After becoming a paragon, Yi Chen did not need to enter hell through any special entrance. He only needed to dive deep into the sky river and break through the barrier to enter hell. Of course, this way, he would not be able to determine where he would enter hell. He would appear at random places. That was close. Is this the power of a ghostly sage? Yi Chen had never fought with a demigod or ghostly sage before. This was the first time. Facing the phantom of the nine ghostly sage, Yi Chen felt as if his soul had been blinded. If not for the space-time movement technique, heaven and earth roam, which contained the charm of turning the impossible into the possible, Yi Chen would not have had the slightest chance of escaping the other party's control. It will be difficult to enter hell next time. Yi Chen smiled bitterly and shook his head. It was not a good thing to be remembered by a ghostly sage. Originally, he could have collected some treasures unique to hell. But now forget it. He would think about it later. Chapter 1408. For the next 1,000 years, Yi Chen didn't step into hell. He was waiting for the 3-sword intense to advance to the 9th level. At that time, his strength would increase by leaps and bounds. He might not be able to fight against a demigod, but a demigod wouldn't be able to kill him easily. This wait lasted for another 500 years. On this day, in the sky above the 9 revolution star, Sword Chi soared into the sky, and the 3-sword intense appeared. They were the immortal and indestructible white immortal sword intent, the destructive black destruction sword intent, and the radiant sword intent that radiated boundless light. As soon as the 3-sword intense appeared, the surrounding dozens to hundreds of light years fell into an extreme silence. For a moment, no one could even feel the existence of the laws of the heavenly Tao. What a terrifying sword intent. All the Supremes looked at the Tiantian continent where Yi Chen was. 9th level sword intent. Heavenly Sovereign Jiuyang's eyes widened. After becoming a supremacy, everyone's martial intent would be stuck at the peak of the 8th level. Only after becoming a demigod would they be able to raise their martial intent to the 9th level. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that a 9th level spirit body and 9th level domain couldn't compare to a 9th level martial intent. If the spirit body was like a home, the 9th level domain was like a border defense, and the martial intent was like a commander, like a king that controlled everything. 3 9th level sword intents? How is this possible? Supreme Skyhook was so shocked that he almost bit his tongue. He had never been so shocked in his life. At this moment, all the Supremes finally understood how terrifying Yi-Chun was. Possessing 1 supreme sword intent was already enough to make him a genius among geniuses, but Yi-Chun had 3: Immortal, Destruction, and Radiant. With 3 supreme sword intents gathered in one body, who in the same generation could compete with him? Unprecedented since ancient times. Sword Saint by Ji let out a deep breath. Even if Yi-Chen's sword intent had reached the 9th level, it wouldn't be able to compete with him. His sword intent had already reached the mid-stage of the 9th level, but it wasn't a supreme sword intent. Instead, it was an extreme sword intent that was equivalent to the slaughter sword intent. This is rank 9 sword intent. As the sword intent had just broken through, Yi-Chun was still unable to fully control it. Strands of sword intent spread out. There was the Immortal sword intent, the Destruction sword intent, and the Light sword intent. The 3 great sword intents didn't interfere with each other. Wherever the sword intent went, a large amount of soil would turn into earthen yellow swords, a large amount of air would condense together, turning into swords of air, and a large amount of light would condense into swords of light. In this world, as long as anything came into contact with Yi-Chen's sword intent, it would all be turned into swords, and Yi-Chun didn't even have to think about it. I see. Yi-Chen finally understood how Sword Saint by Ji had managed to turn a planet into a sword. It was the effect of sword intent. Above the 9th level was the true God will and the universe will. True God will and the universe will were omnipotent. Although the 9th level was far from it, it still had unfathomable abilities. Gradually, the scattered sword intent was retracted. In Yi-Chen's soul ocean, the 3 great sword souls were lined up side by side. The Destruction sword soul was so black that it didn't have any form. The Immortal sword soul was like a white crystal that would last forever. The Light sword soul was a sword soul formed from endless light, billions of times more dazzling than the sun. The light it emitted didn't have any impurities and was pure and dreamy. The sword intent is tempering the soul. Suddenly, Yi-Chun discovered a shocking scene. In his soul ocean, the Immortal sword intent first shone with a white light, sweeping through the soul ocean again and again. As the Immortal sword intent swept through, Yi-Chun found that the purity of his soul ocean was getting higher and higher. It was like a liquid made of melted crystal. 1 month passed, and the strength of Yi-Chen's soul had increased by more than 100 times. It was like he had eaten a great tonic. In the 2nd month, the Destruction sword intent continued to sweep through the soul ocean. If the Immortal sword intent was said to be increasing the soul's strength, then the Destruction sword intent was said to be clearing out the impurities in the soul. If the impurities merged with the soul, then the Destruction sword intent would directly destroy a small part of the soul, as if it was removing a tumor. Finally, it was the Light sword intent's turn to sweep through the soul ocean. The Light sword intent was the most gentle. When the Light sword intent swept through, the soul ocean seemed to be bathed in sunlight, becoming lively and active. 1 year passed, and Yi-Chen's soul ocean turned from silver to gold. If the gold Yuan spirit was equivalent to the eternal Yuan spirit, then the gold soul could also be called the eternal soul. This was the soul that only demigods had, and ordinary beginner demigods might not even be as pure as Yi-Chen's soul. With the current strength of my soul, I'm afraid even a demigod wouldn't be able to kill me with his soul. After becoming an honorable, soul attacks and will attacks were usually supplementary. In a battle of the same level, soul attacks and will attacks could at most affect the opponent. It was basically impossible to destroy the opponent's soul. However, Existences one level higher would be able to destroy the opponent's soul. The most frightening thing was that after one's will reached the 9th level, the combination of soul attacks and will attacks was incomparably terrifying. It was equivalent to a double attack, and it was impossible to defend against it. Back in Hell, when Yi Chun attacked the Een Dragon Mountain's protective array, he was attacked with the will of the 9 Een Ghostly Sage. If not for the fact that it was not the 9 Een Ghostly Sage's true body and that Yi Chun had the Netherworld Divine Eye, perhaps Yi Chun's soul would have been destroyed and he would have died on the spot. It was fine if one's soul attacks and will attacks were not strong, but one's soul defense must be strong. Any weakness could bring about a fatal disaster. Golden Soul, such a clear mind. In an instant, countless sparks flashed above Yi Chun's sea of soul. These were intelligent electric currents, sparks of thoughts. The stronger the sparks of wisdom, the stronger the calculation and comprehension ability. The Golden Soul gave Yi Chun the comprehension and learning ability of a demigod. It was not as simple as strengthening his soul. The heavens are really helping me. Yi Chun couldn't help but shout. Originally, he was a little depressed. He clearly knew where the Golden Supremacy was, but he couldn't save him. Seeing that the deadline to enter the Primal Chaos battlefield was approaching, Yi Chun was actually very anxious. Now, all the problems were easily solved. Given a period of time, Yi Chun was confident that he could raise his strength to a new level. At that time, together with the 3-star Heavenly Sacred Treasure, the Firmament Sword, he should be able to fight against the 9 Een Ghostly Sage. Another 1,500 years passed. There were still 15,000 years until the Primal Chaos battlefield. Based on the Netherworld Divine Eye, Yi Chun created a secret technique that attacked the soul and will, the Sword of Hell. The Sword of Hell contained a soul attack and will attack. The will attack was divided into 2 parts. One was the destructive sword will, and the other was the will of hell. When the 3 were combined, the killing power was abnormally shocking. It was not an exaggeration to say that no one below the demigod level could block the Sword of Hell, unless the opponent's soul was a golden soul. Update tomorrow. My nephew is going overseas. He went to Nantung for 3 days and just returned. Update tomorrow. Sorry. Chapter 1409. Without any hesitation, Yi Chun entered Hell once again. The reason why he dared to enter Hell was not because he had the confidence to fight against the 9 Een Ghostly Sage. That was basically impossible. The 9 Een Ghostly Sage was much stronger than the average Ghostly Sage and was born and bred in Hell. Even though Yi Chun's sword, will, and soul had improved by leaps and bounds, he was still no match for the 9 Een Ghostly Sage. He was only confident that he could escape from the 9 Een Ghostly Sage. The Golden Soul allowed him to better utilize the mysteries of space-time ultimacy, and the 3-tier 9 sword wills increased his survivability. As for the Sword of Hell, it was his trump card. It was the only trump card that could threaten demigods or ghostly sages. Yi Chun's luck was not bad. The 9 Een Ghostly Sage had not returned yet. Perhaps he did not think that Yi Chun would dare to enter Hell again, and was in no hurry to return. Unfortunately, he was wrong. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, you are courting death. The 3 Een Ghostly Lord looked at Yi Chun in disbelief. He knew that the Een Dragon Mountain was protected by the power of the 9 Een Ghostly Lord, and still dared to come again. He was crazy and reckless. 3 Een Ghostly Lord, we meet again. Activating the Underworld Divine Eye, Yi Chun saw that the Golden Supremacy was still in Een Dragon Mountain. He heaved a sigh of relief and greeted him. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, let's see how you escape from Hell this time. The 3 Een Ghostly Lord did not come out, but stayed in the Ghostly Temple. After rescuing the Golden Supremacy, I will naturally leave Hell. Open. Unsheathing the Firmament Sword, Yi Chun slashed at the Een Dragon Mountain with a heavy sword style. The heavy sword light was like a divine light that could split the heavens and earth. Unstoppable and unstoppable. Rumble. The protective array of Een Dragon Mountain shook violently, and then a giant face appeared. The giant face was filled with rage. Since you are here, don't leave. 2 gloomy rays of light shot out from the eyes of the giant face and shot towards Yi Chun. How could Yi Chen not see that this eerie light was condensed from the power of ghosts? Ghosts were the product of the soul and the will of hell. They were formless and incorporeal. They were more mysterious and stronger than soul power. Ordinary attacks were unable to injure ghosts, just like how ordinary attacks were unable to injure souls. Below the ghost monarch rank, all ghosts were condensed from the power of ghosts. They had form but no substance. After becoming a ghost monarch, they would begin to condense a ghost body, which was equivalent to the body of a life form in the outside world. However, the ghost body was actually a variation of the power of ghosts. The eerie light flashed and disappeared into Yi Chen's soul sea. In that instant, tens of thousands of ghosts howled above Yi Chen's soul sea. If it were an ordinary supremacy, his soul sea would definitely be devoured cleanly, leaving nothing behind. But Yi Chen was no ordinary supremacy. The golden soul sea rippled, and the thousands of ghosts found it difficult to swallow. At the same time, the three sword spirits were enraged, releasing a terrifying storm of sword that swept towards the thousands of ghosts. Like spring snow meeting the blazing sun, the thousands of ghosts melted away. Under the assault of the three great sword wills, the ghost power of the ghostly sage could not hold out for long. What? Golden Soul? Ninth tier sword will? Because he had not paid enough attention to Yi Chen, the ghost power that the nine ghostly sage had released contained a sliver of consciousness. As the ghost power was melted away, this sliver of consciousness also collapsed, blurring the giant face. But also let him know the changes in Yi Chen's soul sea. The ghost power could not do anything to Yi Chen. The giant face on the protective array broke away, taking on the appearance of the nine ghostly sage. Very good. No wonder you dare to step into hell again. The nine ghost sage was a skinny, cold-looking middle-aged man. He wore a black cloak, which did not have a specific shape. It looked like black ink that stretched out endlessly. However, Yi Chen, who had the underworld saint eye, squinted his eyes. From this black cloak, he could feel a trace of fear. This feeling was like seeing a sky saint weapon. If Yi Chen had guessed correctly, the black cloak should be a heavenly ghost treasure. Of course, it was not the real body. The real body was definitely with the nine ghostly sage, and the nine ghostly sage and the black cloak were both illusions. Nine ghostly sage, I have no intention of becoming enemies with you. I only hope that you can release the golden supremacy of Dragon Mountain. He is no threat to you. Releasing him should not affect you. Unless it was absolutely necessary, Yi Chen did not wish to become enemies with the nine ghostly sage. Sword Sage Baiji and Demon Sage Jialuo would not be willing to offend the nine ghostly sage either. Before he became a demigod, or before he could match a demigod, he did not have the right to go against the nine ghostly sage. I will naturally release him after 1,000,000 years. You don't have to worry about that. What you should worry about is how you will escape from hell. The nine ghostly sage stared coldly at Yi Chen. Pardon me. Against the nine ghostly sage's real body, Yi Chen did not have much confidence. Against the nine ghostly sage's illusions, Yi Chen still had some confidence. The Hell Sword was not just for show. Wielding the Firmament Sword, Yi Chen used the Black Hole stance to kill the nine ghostly sage. His space-time ultimacy was perfected, and the Black Hole stance's power was not inferior to the Heavy Sword stance. The nine ghostly sage laughed coldly. He grabbed with his hand, and the Black Hole stance shattered. The 9 black holes dissipated before they could form. A ghostly lord had the power of a ghostly lord, and a ghostly sage had the power of a ghostly sage. Whether it was the power of a ghostly lord or the power of a ghostly sage, they were both a combination of the power of a ghostly spirit and the power of a ghostly body. Go! After breaking Yi Chen's sword technique with one move, the 9 ghostly sage waved his right hand, and a large amount of white light shot towards Yi Chen. Bone-piercing nail, one of the 9 ghostly sage's ultimate moves. Ding, 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 ding. There were too many bone-piercing spikes, and Yi Chen could not completely seal them all. After all, to seal the bone-piercing spikes, the real body of the Firmament Sword had to be used. The illusions formed by the firmament sword could not block the bone-piercing spikes at all. They could only block 1% of the bone-piercing spikes. The remaining bone-piercing spikes all landed on Yi Chen's body. However, to everyone's surprise, the power of the bone-piercing spikes did not penetrate Yi Chen's body. Besides his Tier 9 sword Will, the Golden Soul, and the Hell Sword, Yi Chen dared to come to Hell. He also had something to rely on, his Immortal Sword body. The Immortal Sword will had broken through to the Tier 9 level, and Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body had reached the 16th level. It was enough to block an attack from a quasi-demigod. Coupled with the Black Tortoise sacred armor, even a beginner demigod could not do anything to Yi Chen. The 9 ghostly sage before him was just an illusion, and naturally could not break through Yi Chen's defenses and directly attack Yi Chen's martial Dao primordial spirit. What a surprise to combine a Tier 9 Immortal Sword Will with a body-refining technique. The 9 ghostly sage was surprised once again. The bone-piercing spikes were specialized in attacking one's primordial spirit, and to a certain extent, could ignore defenses. However, this was only to a certain extent. Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body contained the Tier 9 Immortal Sword Will, and with the protection of the Immortal Sword Will, it was extremely difficult for the bone-piercing spikes to penetrate his defenses. It could be said that Yi Chen's Immortal Sword body was almost flawless. It could block normal attacks, and it could also block attacks from nothingness. However, this was also because Yi Chen had the Immortal Sword Will, and other Sword Wills could not do the job. Chapter 14:10. Yellow Spring's Finger. As one of the 10 sages of Hell, the 9 ghostly sage had many tricks up his sleeves. The bone-piercing nail was only one of his ultimate moves. In comparison, the Yellow Spring's Finger was even more overbearing and unstoppable. He raised his right index finger, and a dark, cold light gathered. The air was visibly frozen, and the cold air exploded, spreading towards Yi Chen. The power of the 9 underworld frost. Yi Chen was shocked. The 9 underworld frost and hellish fire were the most terrifying things in hell. Both were split into 9 grades, and anyone who could refine a high-grade 9 underworld frost or hellish fire could use it as their trump card. From this unique cold air, the 9 ghostly sage's Yellow Spring's Finger had clearly refined a high-grade 9 underworld frost. The cold air grew endlessly in his body, forming a source. Combined with the 9 ghostly sage's ghostly sage power, it was unimaginably terrifying. Not daring to let the Yellow Spring's Finger touch his body directly, Yi Chen roared, activating the true defensive power of the Xian Wu divine armor. Dark underworld sky. A phantom of a Xian Wu formed, enveloping Yi Chen. In the next instant, the Yellow Spring's Finger landed on it, freezing the phantom of the Xian Wu into a block of ice. However, Yi Chen was not affected. A heavenly sage treasure armor? The 9 ghostly sage frowned. It was already extremely lucky for a legendary figure to have a heavenly sage treasure. This kid actually had 2, one for offense and one for defense. It was perfect. Forget it. I'll take him down first. Although he could not hurt Yi Chen, it did not mean that the 9 ghostly sage could not capture Yi Chen. The two were not the same. Heaven and earth shrouding. 9 ghostly hand. The 9 ghostly sage soared into the sky, the cloak on his back expanding into a sky full of black clouds. Before Yi Chen could react, he had been enveloped. Although this cloak was only a phantom of a heavenly ghost treasure, it was activated by the 9 ghostly sage's ghostly sage power. Its power was maximized, unlike Yi Chen, who could not bring out the true power of the firmament sword and the Xian Wu divine armor. Enveloped in the black cloud of the cloak, Yi Chen felt his spirit being blinded, unable to sense the existence of time. Then, a pale, ghostly hand grew larger and larger, reaching out with unavoidable speed. Radiant Sword will break for me. In the face of desperation, Yi Chen was calm. In his spirit's sea, the Radiant Sword's spirit vibrated violently. Then, a dazzling but not blinding light spread out from Yi Chen. The Radiant Sword was open and upright. Although it was not as indestructible as the Immortal Sword Will, nor did it have the killing power of the destruction sword will. With it, light was everywhere. Under the assault of the radiant sword will, cracks appeared in the impenetrable black clouds. The radiant sword will leaked out through the cracks, allowing Yi Chun to sense the time and space outside. Heaven and earth roam. There was no time to lose. Yi Chun used the heaven and earth roam movement technique and escaped through the cracks in the black clouds. In the instant that he escaped from the black clouds, Yi Chun activated his trump card, the Sword of Hell. A blood-red sword shadow shot out from Yi Chun's right eye. This blood-red sword shadow was a combination of the will of hell, the destruction sword will, and the golden soul power. Each of these three was not to be underestimated. Even the creator, Yi Chun, did not know how strong their combined power was. After all, there was no suitable test subject. Pooh! The blood-red sword shadow sank into the nine ghostly sage's head. Ark! A scream rang out, and the nine ghostly sage's 7 orifices spewed out thick, blood-red smoke like a wriggling snake. His eyes, in particular, shot out 2 beams of blood-red light. His aura grew weaker and weaker, until even his body became blurry, no longer as clear as before. Yi Chun had completely underestimated the power of the Sword of Hell. Whether it was the Golden Soul power or the Tier 9 Destruction Sword will, they were both abilities of a demigod. They should have been able to injure a beginner demigod, let alone the illusion of the 9 ghostly sage. It works. Yi Chun's eyebrows twitched, and 2 blood-red sword shadows shot out from his right eye. As the 2 blood-red sword shadows shot out, more than half of Yi Chun's golden soul sea disappeared. One more, and the entire golden soul sea would dry up. These 2 blood-red sword shadows were very effective. The 9 ghostly sage's head exploded, and his body dissipated. The black cape on his back also disappeared into the void, vanishing. Impossible! 3 ghostly lord was dumbfounded. He could not imagine that Yi Chun had actually defeated the illusion of Lord 9. He knew very well how strong Lord 9 was. Everyone in hell knew that. Although the strength of his illusion was far from the real body, it still had many tricks up its sleeves. Break! Without further ado, Yi Chun held the firmament sword and slashed open the Dragon Mountain's defensive great array. In the next moment, countless demonic beasts and ghosts rushed out. Yi Chun made a grabbing motion, grabbing the bewildered gold sovereign. His figure flickered, distorting the space-time and disappearing without a trace. There were too many demons and ghosts imprisoned in Dragon Mountain. Faced with such a situation, 3 ghostly lord did not dare to leave the ghostly temple. He was afraid that the moment he did, he would be devoured cleanly by these demons and ghosts, leaving not a single drop behind. Oof. But at this moment, a cold snort rang out, and space and time suddenly froze. In the next instant, an endless black cape spread out, enveloping the fleeing demons and ghosts. No matter how much the legendary ghostly lord howled, it was useless. They could not resist the power of the heavenly ghost treasure. The black cape gradually shrank, draping itself over the body of a cold, middle-aged man. It was 9 ghostly sage. This was a projection of 9 ghostly sage. It was even stronger than the previous illusion, and it was not an exaggeration to call this projection the real ghostly sage. The black cape flapped without any wind. Large numbers of demons and ghosts were once again imprisoned in Dragon Mountain, and the protective array was activated once more. With the power of the ghostly sage, it was even sturdier than before. Lord 9, 3 ghostly lord, and the other ghostly lords rushed out of the ghostly temple, kneeling on one knee. 9 ghostly sage looked in the direction that Yi Chun had left, his face cold. When Yi Chun had used the crimson sword shadow, he had already pierced through space and time, sending his own power over. But he had still been a step too slow. Seal the news. Besides you, if anyone else knows about this, you will be held responsible. 9 ghostly sage was still very prideful and did not want others to know about this. Yes, 3 ghostly lord shuddered. He knew very well that if news got out, It would damage Lord Nine Yin's reputation, and he would not have a good ending. After 9, Ghostly Sage left. 3, Ghostly Lord heaved a sigh of relief. Then, as if recalling something, he turned and barked to his ghostly lords. All of you, remember this. If anyone spreads word of what happened today, I will make him beg for death. Don't worry, Lord. We will not risk our lives. 3, Ghostly Lord nodded. That was true. Even if these ghostly lords were not afraid of him, they should be afraid of Lord Nine Yin's harsh punishment. He had nothing to worry about. Thinking up to this point, Yi Chen's figure involuntarily flashed through his mind. What an audacious person, even making Lord Nine Yin suffer a loss. Chapter 14:11. You are above the Milky Way. The Golden Supreme looked at Yi Chen blankly. The other party's strength shocked him, but why did the other party save him? He did not remember the Human Race Alliance having such a powerful Supreme, nor did he remember knowing or having a relationship with such a Supreme. Everything was too sudden. I am. Yi Chen introduced his identity in detail, not leaving out a single detail. After listening to Yi Chen's introduction, the Golden Supreme's jaw dropped, and he could not close it for a long time. The other party was his future son-in-law. That was too much of a monster. Had he been imprisoned for hundreds of thousands of years? This was the only reasonable explanation. But the Golden Supreme did not think that his sense of time was so weak that he did not even know how much time had passed. How was my daughter doing? The Golden Supreme asked eagerly. Very good. Yi Chen nodded. Just thinking about you. Is that so? Seems like she has already remembered her childhood. The Golden Supreme sighed. I did not expect things to develop to this point. After so many years, I have also woken up. Since I have become a ghostly lord, it is a new life, a new person. Forcefully interfering will only cause me to bleed. Obviously, the Golden Supreme was referring to Red Lotus, Ghostly Lord. Uncle, I heard that ghostly lords can also recover the memories of their past lives, Yi Chen said. The Golden Supreme laughed bitterly. Legends can, but that is a legend after all, and the requirements are too harsh. One needs to find a stone of 3 lives and drink a mouthful of the spring of the past to recover their memories. The stone of 3 lives is very rare, even in hell. Among the 10 sages of hell, Heaven Slayer, Ghostly Sage, and Phoenix, Ghostly Sage each have one. The spring of the past is one of the 9 springs of hell, and ordinary people cannot find it at all because it exists in the past. One needs to reverse time in the correct area to find the spring of the past. So troublesome? Yi Chen frowned. If he guessed correctly, the Heaven Butcher Ghost Sage should have been the supreme of the demons or a demigod in his previous life, and only became the Hell Ghost Sage later on. If he wanted to borrow the Stone of 3 Lives from him, it would be good enough if he could come back alive, let alone borrow it. As for the Phoenix Ghost Sage, this was a breakthrough point. After all, he was one of the ancestors of the Phoenix clan. Since he had the Stone of 3 Lives, he might have the memories of his previous life, so he might be able to borrow the Stone of 3 Lives. As for the spring of the past, it was quite troublesome. There were a total of 9 springs in the infernal realm, and each of them existed only in legends. The spring of the past came from the past, and not just anyone could see it. Yi Chen was not confident that he could find it. Of course, the most troublesome thing was still the 9 in Ghostly Sage. Even if he could find the Stone of 3 Lives and the spring water of the past, it would be useless if he could not come into contact with Red Lotus Ghostly Lord. Yi Chen had already witnessed the strength of the 9 in Ghostly Sage. It was no exaggeration to say that even 100 of him would not be a match for the 9 in Ghostly Sage's true body. The difference in strength was too great. After leaving the Sky River, Yi Chen and the Golden Supreme martial artist returned to the 4 vital star domains. The moment she saw the Golden Supreme martial artist, Su Jing teared up and hugged him. Before she was 10 years old, she had a happy family. One day, her mother passed away. Her father stood there in a daze for a few days, then sealed her up and sent her to a foreign world. She had been in a deep sleep until she woke up. Although she was fortunate enough to meet Yi Chen, the sorrow in the depths of her heart could not be erased. Daughter, I'm sorry. The Golden Supreme martial artist felt that he was very selfish. For the sake of his wife, he had given up his daughter. He was not fit to be a father. I don't blame you. Su Jing had already found out the cause of the matter from Yi Chun. Yi Chun, from now on, my daughter is in your hands. You must not let her down, or else you will disappoint me. The Golden Supreme Martial Artist had wanted to say that he would not forgive him, but after thinking about Yi Chun's strength, he decided not to. He was only a super supreme martial artist and could not compare to the future son-in-law of a legendary supreme martial artist. Don't worry, uncle. Yi Chun nodded. After solving the problem, Su Jing finally became a supreme martial artist after 3,000 years. As a golden dragon, Su Jing, who had become a supreme martial artist, was many times stronger than ordinary supreme martial artists. She was a powerful supreme martial artist from the start. The Golden Supreme Martial Artist also taught Su Jing his strongest body-refining martial art, the Golden Battle Body. Although the Golden Battle Body was not as good as the Golden Body 9 Revolutions, the Golden Supreme Martial Artist had already cultivated the Golden Battle Body to the highest realm, enough to withstand the attack of a mid-level legendary Supreme Martial Artist, even better than the Golden Buddha Supreme Martial Artist. With his guidance, Su Jing's Golden Battle Body improved by leaps and bounds. 1,000 years later, she reached the peak of the 5th level of the Golden Battle Body, while the Golden Battle Body was only at the 6th level. Murong Qingsheng was not willing to fall behind. 1,000 years later, she also became a supreme martial artist. At this time, there were only 10,000 years left before entering the primal chaos battlefield. I'll go and ask for a body-refining martial art for you. Murong Qingsheng was equivalent to half a dark demon. Yi Chun planned to ask for the cultivation method of the dark demon body from the six-winged supreme martial artist. How you want it? Murong Qingsheng asked. I have my own ways. Yi Chun smiled mysteriously. 30 years later, on a planet in the demon domain, that detestable sword, Venerable Green Lotus? The six-winged supreme martial artist was furious. This sword, Venerable Green Lotus, was too shameless. He actually dared to come to the demon domain alone and force him to hand over the cultivation method of the dark demon body. When the first demon Venerable successfully cultivates the Demon King Golden Body, you will suffer. Apart from the Demon Tyrant Body, the demons had an even stronger body-refining martial art, the Demon King Golden Body. This body-refining martial art could only be cultivated by the great Demon King bloodline. It was said that when cultivated to the highest realm, even a demigod would be helpless against it. Moreover, it could stimulate the dark power in the great Demon King bloodline and help the first demon Venerable master the law of darkness. Hell's Time Mountain. Ghost Sage 2 Tian was a white-haired, majestic old man. Together with him was the first demon Venerable with the great Demon King bloodline. Time Mountain, the power of time, is especially turbulent. While we are talking, it might have already been 10 or 100 years. If I'm not wrong, the future spring must be hidden in the future space-time of Time Mountain. Hell had 9 springs, and the future spring was one of them. Is the future spring really so magical? The first demon Venerable asked. Ghost Sage 2 Tian said, it will only be more magical than what I said. However, you must remember that risk and wealth always go hand in hand. The flow of time in the future spring is thousands of times faster than that of Time Mountain. Perhaps you will die of old age in the future spring. It doesn't matter. If I die of old age in there, it proves that I am nothing more than this. The first demon Venerable said, all right, I hope you can come back alive. Be careful. I want to speed up the flow of time and find the future spring. Ghost Sage 2 Tian roared, and the power of time and space around him surged. It was not much inferior to the power of time of the Mountain of Time. In the next moment, the space around the two changed unpredictably. Sometimes there was no one, sometimes there were several ghost lords fighting, and sometimes there was a temple. After an unknown period of time, a meandering spring appeared in the Mountain of Time. It flowed and gushed. Listening to this sound, one could not help but be intoxicated. Going. Ghost Sage 2 Tian hurriedly said. The first demon Venerable nodded and flew towards the spring. With a splash, the first demon Venerable's figure sank into the spring. Seeing this, Ghost Sage 2 Tion dispersed his Ghost Sage power. The surrounding space-time rebounded until it returned to its original state. Chapter 14:12. The dark demonic body was extremely mysterious. Seriously speaking, it was not the same type of body-refining technique as the Golden Body 9 transformations and the Golden Battle Body. This body-refining technique only had 3 levels. The first level was very ordinary. At the second level, there would be an additional pair of wings on the back. At the third level, there would be another pair of wings. This was also why the 6-winged supremacy had 3 pairs of wings on her back. It was because she had cultivated the dark demonic body to the 3rd level. Once the dark demonic body was completed, her speed would be extremely fast. The 3 pairs of wings on her back naturally contained the power of time and space. After spending 3,000 years, Murong Qingsheng had cultivated the dark demonic body to the 2nd level and had an additional pair of wings on her back. As for the 3rd level, if there was no opportunity, she might not be able to break through in 30,000 years. This was something that could not be rushed. There were only 7,000 years left before they entered the chaotic battlefield. The Human Alliance and the Demon's Alliance had both added many supremacies. In the Human Alliance, besides Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng, there were more than 10 people who had advanced to the supremacy level, such as Dantai Mingyue, the Golden Emperor, and the Green Emperor. In fact, Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng had become supremacies later than them. However, in terms of the speed of improvement, these people naturally could not compare with Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng. After all, the one standing behind them was Yi Chun. Back then, Yi Chun had benefited a lot from the Black Wind Stream and obtained countless demon knowledge. It was no exaggeration to say that this was more useful than the inheritance of the supremacy of the 3 realms. Without this demon knowledge, Yi Chun's foundation was ultimately limited. Without this foundation, it would be difficult for Yi Chun to compete with the first demon lord with the Great Demon King bloodline, let alone suppress the other party. With countless demonic knowledge, Yi Chun was naturally very skilled in teaching Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng. In just a few thousand years, the two's martial primordial spirits had reached the critical point, and they were only one step away from breaking through to the bronze level. However, Yi Chun did not hide anything. Occasionally, he would give some pointers to some of the newly promoted Supremes. As for whether they could upgrade their martial way primordial spirit to the bronze level before entering the chaos battlefield, that would depend on their own luck. In fact, Yi Chun did not wish for all the Supremes of the Human Race Alliance to enter the chaos battlefield. After all, if that happened, how could the Human Race Alliance contend against the Demon's Alliance without any Supremes? Of course, regarding this point, Yi Chun was not very worried. If the Bronze Yuan spirit was so easy to cultivate, it wouldn't be the Bronze Yuan spirit. Back then, in order to cultivate the Bronze Yuan spirit, he had paid a huge price. If it wasn't for the help of the will of the desolate god, it was unknown whether he would still be alive. Don't expose these 4 Sky Saint artifacts unless it's a last resort. Normally, you can just use the Earth Saint artifacts. Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng had become Supremes one after another. Yi Chun had taken out 4 Sky Saint artifact for them at once. 2 Sky Saint artifact armors and 2 Sky Saint artifact weapons. Although they were all 1 star, it still stunned Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng for a long time. In the entire universe, not to mention Sky Saint artifacts, even Earth Saint artifacts were extremely rare. It was unexpected that Yi Chun could take out 4 Sky Saint artifacts at once. Could it be that Yi Chun had obtained a Saint artifact treasure trove outside? This is my harvest from the desolate god continent. Yi Chun hadn't told the 2 about this yet. He wanted to give them a surprise. One had to know that there was a huge difference between having and not having a Saint artifact. Without a Saint artifact, the 2 of them were only at the peak of Supremes. On the other hand, with an Earth Saint artifact, the 2 of them were at the level of Supremes. With a Sky Saint artifact, the 2 of them could walk unhindered among the Supremes. Ordinary Supremes wouldn't be able to do anything to them. This was the terror of a Sky Saint artifact. It could instantly increase one's strength by 1,000,000 times. Recently, Yi Chun didn't know what was going on. His brows were constantly twitching. After thinking about it, Yi Chun felt that this should be a warning sign. The first demon sovereign hadn't appeared for a long time. With his personality and bloodline, it was impossible for him to be unknown. He was probably accumulating his strength in the dark. Although Yi Chun's improvement was fast, the bloodline of a great demon king wasn't an ordinary person. Yi Chun's only shortcoming was his Yuan spirit. Yi Chun felt that it was necessary for him to improve his Yuan spirit to the silver intermediate rank. The heavenly river was vast and boundless. Ever since he became a sovereign, Yi Chun hadn't seriously explored the heavenly river. Instead, he went to hell many times. With his space-time ultimacy, Yi Chun could see many more things on the heavenly river. The entire sky above the heavenly river was like countless space-time layers stacked together. If he wasn't careful, he might be far away from his original position. There are countless treasures on the heavenly river, waiting for the fated one. I wonder how my luck is this time. Yi Chun felt that his luck had always been good. However, there were also times when he wasn't lucky. It was impossible to say that he would be lucky every time. Time passed. In the blink of an eye, Yi Chun had already been in the heavenly river for over 100 years. During this period, he found many treasures. However, none of them caught his eye. On this day, Yi Chun felt a heat wave from afar. Heat wave. Yi Chun was very curious. The space-time above the heavenly river overlapped. It was almost impossible to transmit heat over from afar. Even if legendary supremes were to fight here, they wouldn't be able to transmit their energy far. Let's go and take a look. Following the source of the heat wave, Yi Chun rushed over. After a short while, Yi Chun saw a volcanic island. It was a huge volcanic island. Above the volcanic island, fiery clouds filled the sky. The scarlet light caused the water of the heavenly river to turn red. It was as if magma was flowing there. Rumble. There is only one volcano on the volcanic island. The volcano trembled, and a scarlet pillar of fire soared into the sky, spewing into the depths of the fiery clouds. A terrifying heat wave spread out, as if it was the end of the world. It's Mount Doomsday! Yi Chun's eyes lit up. Mount Doomsday would usually contain extremely precious fire attribute heavenly treasures. The older the Mount Doomsday, the better the fire attribute heavenly treasures. Without any hesitation, Yi Chun flew toward Mount Doomsday. Mount Doomsday was really too big. It was tens of billions of miles tall and had a diameter of hundreds of billions of miles. Only the mouth of the volcano was very small, only about 50 million miles wide. Roar! As soon as he arrived at the mouth of the volcano, Yi Chun was attacked by a fire monster. This was a fire monster that looked like a dragon, but wasn't a dragon. It looked like a bat, but wasn't a bat. It was a ferocious beast unique to Mount Doomsday, Doomsday Fire Beast. It was said that even the weakest Doomsday Fire Beast had the strength of a super supreme being. Yi Chun felt that the records weren't fake. This Doomsday Fire Beast in front of him had the strength of a super supreme being. It was extremely ferocious. Ignoring the other party, Yi Chun's figure flashed and flew toward the interior of Mount Doomsday. The Doomsday Fire Beast was enraged. It roared, and a scarlet sound wave spread out. In the next moment, a large number of Doomsday Fire Beasts surged out from the interior of the volcano like a tide. However, Yi Chun's defense was too strong. He charged around as if there was no one around. These Doomsday Fire Beasts couldn't even stop him for a moment. Mount Doomsday would only erupt once in a very long time. Yi Chun slowly landed at the bottom of the volcano. He looked around and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The entire bottom of the volcano was actually filled with spirit energy fire crystals. Spirit energy fire crystals could temper spirit bodies. There were 4 grades: elementary, intermediate, high, and peak. Elementary spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 1 and 2 spirit bodies. Intermediate spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 3 and 4 spirit bodies. High spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 5 and 6 spirit bodies. And peak spirit energy fire crystals were for rank 7 and 8 spirit bodies. A long time ago, Yi Chun had seen many spirit energy fire crystals in an old planet in the Black Tortoise Ruins. However, most of them were elementary, intermediate, and few were high. Chapter 14:13. Casually collecting some top-grade fire crystals, Yichen walked toward the magma lake in the center. The temperature of the magma lake was extremely high, and lava would spurt out from time to time. Yichen squinted his eyes as he sensed the aura of the fire laws. He inwardly speculated that if one were to be hit by a lava flow, even a legend-ranked sovereign would fall. They would only be able to protect themselves if they had a Sky Saint artifact armor. Due to the high temperature, the space above the magma lake was extremely distorted. Yichen's vision could only penetrate millions of miles, and the diameter of the entire magma lake was billions of miles. Frowning, Yichen took a deep breath and flew toward the depths of the magma lake. It's so hot. Above the magma lake, the heat was monstrous. Yichen felt that even time and space were hot. There were almost no other heavenly Tao laws here, only the violent law of fire. Not daring to be careless, Yichen pulled out the firmament sword and flew carefully. There was no pattern to the eruption of magma. The entire magma lake surged with waves, seeming as if it would erupt at any moment. Flying above the magma lake, Yichen not only had to avoid the magma, but he also had to carefully observe the undulations of the magma lake. As soon as something went wrong, he would immediately retreat. After all, he didn't dare to be certain that the Black Tortoise Saint armor could withstand the might of the eruption. Boom! The deeper he went into the magma lake, the more lava surged into the sky. Dozens of lava flows interweaved into a net and covered Yichen. Holding the firmament sword tightly, Yichen blasted out the black hole stance. The next moment, the black hole was destroyed, and the lava flows exploded, turning into a rain of fire. The rain of fire fell on the protective sword energy enhanced by the Black Tortoise sacred armor, making sizzling sounds. Small island. Finally, Yichen saw a small island several million li away. It was entirely red in color and had a diameter of 100 meters. Any wave of lava would be able to submerge it. At the center of the island, a small tree glowing with a fiery light stood there. There were 3 fist-sized fruits on the tree, and intense flames were bursting out of them. Heavenly Demon Fire Spirit Fruit. How many tens of thousands of years would it take? Yichen's breathing stagnated. The Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit was one of the treasures used to temper the spirit body. The higher the age, the stronger the tempering effect. Normally, a 50,000-year-old Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit was rare. This Celestial Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit tree was at least 100,000 years old. What a pleasant surprise. Originally, Yichen planned to look for some heavenly treasures that were beneficial to the martial Dao Yuan spirit. He did not expect to find a Sky Fiend Fire Spirit Fruit tree. With these 3 Sky Fiend Fire Spirit Fruits, Yichen was confident that he could advance his spirit body to the late stage of the 9th Order. This way, his immortal sword body would improve further, and he might even reach the 17th level. I'm afraid it won't be that easy to obtain the Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit. Looking around the island, Yichen's expression turned solemn. Normally, heavenly treasures would be guarded by powerful beasts, and the better the treasure, the more terrifying the beast guarding it. This was the opponent's home ground, and the law of fire was very dense here. The opponent could easily fight those at a higher level than him. Let's see what kind of beast is guarding this place. With a burst of speed, Yichen flew toward the island. In just a few blinks of an eye, Yichen was less than 10,000 li away from the island. At this moment, the magma lake below shook violently, and with a rumble, the sky was filled with magma. A huge beast broke out of the water and flew toward Yichen. With a glance, Yichen clearly saw the appearance of the beast. It looked exactly like the Doomsday Fire beast, but it did not have wings. If Yichen guessed correctly, this should be the Volcano King born from the Doomsday Volcano. The Volcano King was covered in red scales, and there was a pair of flaming horns on its head. The horns clearly contained a faint law of fire. It was not hard to imagine that even a demigod would be seriously injured if they were stabbed by these horns. Fortunately, Yichen did not find any law of fire on the Volcano King's teeth or claws. Otherwise, he would have just run away. There was no way he could beat it. The Volcano King's speed was as fast as a flash of fire. Fortunately, Yi Chen's reaction was not slow either. With a wave of the firmament sword, a sword light met the Volcano King. Boom! The shockwave shook, and the Volcano King was sent flying. Yi Chen could not help but sway. Fortunately, it should be a quasi-saint beast. However, the attack from that pair of horns is definitely at the saint beast level. I cannot let it hit me. Yi Chen was most afraid of the pair of horns. Roar! The Volcano King was furious. The horns on its head shone brightly, and two flaming spears extended toward Yi Chen. At the same time that Yi Chen dodged one flaming spear, the firmament sword cut the other one. The huge recoil was transmitted from the firmament sword to Yi Chen's right arm, causing Yi Chen's body to shake. The law of fire has been isolated by the firmament sword, but the explosive power caused by the law of fire still exists. Yi Chen felt the blood in his body boil. Passively taking a beating was not a way out. Yi Chen forcefully raised his sword energy and attacked the Volcano King with a heavy sword move. Immediately, the magma lake between the two split open. The incomparably heavy sword light completely locked onto the Volcano King, making it unable to move. As if sensing the power of the sword light, the Volcano King lowered its head, and its horns faced the sword light. Poochie! The sword light shattered, and the Volcano King somersaulted several times in the air. Finally, it slid across the surface of the magma lake for nearly 1,000 miles. Visible cracks could be seen on its forehead. Although the horns had shattered the sword light, the remaining sword light was still powerful and slightly broke through its defense. Chance! Yi Chen's eyes brightened. After a few flashes, he appeared on the Red Island and reached out to pull out the Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit Tree. However, to Yi Chen's surprise, there was actually a small red snake coiled around the tree. Because the fruit tree was shining brightly, Yi Chen did not notice this small snake. Just as Yi Chen's palm reached out, the small snake opened its poisonous fangs and bit at Yi Chen's wrist. At the critical moment, Yi Chen's palm drew an arc, passing by a Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit Tree. Bam! A Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit Tree was suddenly missing. Seeing one less fruit, the red snake was enraged. Its body arched and shot toward Yi Chen. Its speed was so fast that even space and time were distorted. Like a spring that had been pressed to its limit, it suddenly let go. Bang! The red snake looked very small, but its strength was unbelievably great. Yi Chen's whole body flew backward like a flowing light. He flew tens of thousands of miles above the magma lake before he stopped. So scary. Yi Chen had a lingering fear. He felt that this red snake was even scarier than the King of Volcanoes. The King of Volcanoes only had a pair of horns that were more powerful. One Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit should be enough. Yi Chen did not plan to fight to the death with the King of Volcanoes and the red snake. These two were not to be trifled with. The key was that they had the means to threaten Yi Chen. Rumble. Before Yi Chen could rejoice at the fact that he had obtained a Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit, the entire magma lake suddenly became violent. This was the sign of an eruption. Run! Yi Chen did not care about anything else. He crazily flew toward the shore of the magma lake. As long as he reached the shore, he could use the black tortoise sacred armor to resist the power of the eruption. However, no matter how fast Yi Chen was, he could not be faster than the speed of the eruption. In the next moment, the entire magma lake disappeared. A pillar of fire as thick as the magma lake shot up into the sky, wrapping Yi Chen in it. Chapter 14:14. Chi 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 Chi. The protective sword Chi rapidly weakened, and only a thin layer remained. In the next moment, the protective sword Chi collapsed, and the scorching magma drowned Yi Chen. Boom! Suddenly, a beam of light exploded, pushing the magma away. Outside Yi Chen's body, a black shield of light reappeared. The true power of the Xuanwu Saint armor had been activated. Thank goodness! Yi Chen heaved a sigh of relief. If the black tortoise sacred armor had not been able to unleash its true power, even if he did not die, he would have been severely injured and his foundation would have been damaged. Following the pillar of fire, Yi Chun arrived above the crater of the volcano and rushed into the fiery clouds. Whoosh! At this time, the power of the fire pillar had weakened. Yi Chun easily escaped from the fire pillar and flew millions of miles away. With a flip of his palm, the fist-sized celestial fiend fire spirit fruit floated above his palm. A bright red flame burst forth from it, making it look more like a miniature sun than a fruit. A heavenly fiend fire spirit fruit over 100,000 years only exists in legends. I wonder if it can help my spirit body break through from mid-ninth order to late ninth order. Although a heavenly demon fire spirit fruit that was over 100,000 years old was rare in the world, it wasn't that easy to raise a ninth stage spiritual body. Most importantly, Yi Chun wasn't a body refinement sovereign. With a ninth step spirit body, each step was like a different world. Under normal circumstances, unless one was a body refinement sovereign, it would be impossible for them to advance, and they would stay at the early ninth step for the rest of their lives. There are two reasons why Yi Chun was able to raise his spirit body to the mid-ninth step. Firstly, he had collected enough heavenly materials and earthly treasures. Secondly, which was also the most important reason, Yi Chun had created the immortal sword body and could be considered a half-baked body refinement sovereign. Therefore, to advance from the mid-ninth order to the late ninth order was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Only with the sky demon fire spirit fruit, that was over 100,000 years old, would it be impossible for Yi Chun's spirit body to advance for a long time. Let's find a place to test it first. After storing the sky demon fire spirit fruit, Yi Chun's figure flashed and disappeared without a trace. On a precipitous island, surging spiritual energy suddenly erupted, turning the entire area red. It was as if a volcano was erupting, venting a powerful force. On the mountainside of the island's only mountain peak, Yi Chun sat cross-legged on the ground. The fiery sky demon fire spirit fruit floated above his head. The heavenly demon fire spirit fruit, that was over 100,000 years old, had too much spiritual energy. Directly swallowing it would bring Yi Chun a lot of trouble. Yi Chun simply absorbed its energy slowly to temper his body. Traces of fire seeped out from the surface of the sky demon fire spirit fruit and entered through the top of Yi Chun's head. As the fire entered his body, Yi Chun's body emitted a brilliant heat. His clothes had long turned to ashes, revealing the black tortoise sacred armor tattoo on his naked body. So hot, Yi Chun felt as if he had become a furnace. The fire inside was brewing and accumulating. This feeling was very strange. Yi Chun couldn't help but sigh. The human body was too strange. Even as a legendary supremacy, he couldn't see through all the mysteries of the human body. Every time he thought he saw through it, it was actually just the surface layer. Dazzling light flickered. Yi Chun's body glowed, and the surface of his skin gradually turned red, like iron being heated by fire. This situation continued until Yi Chun's entire body seemed to have turned into a red light. His silhouette and appearance couldn't be seen at all. 1 month later, the sky demon fire spirit fruit had shrunk by more than half, and the red light man below was even more brilliant. Still not enough. The red light man raised his head and swallowed the remaining sky demon fire spirit fruit. Boom! The moment he swallowed the sky demon fire spirit fruit, the red light man's 7 orifices shot out light. His eyes shot out a deep red light that pierced through the mountain peak. So powerful! Yi Chun felt that the sky demon fire spirit fruit's power was constantly seeping into him, seeping into a depth that he had never explored before. It was transforming his body in an extremely violent manner, sublimating his physique. Creak! Yi Chun couldn't help but clench his fists. Space-time trembled, and cracks appeared on the island and the mountain peak. The deep red light leaked out from the cracks, and the entire island was like a glowing crystal that was about to shatter. 1 week later, the island still hadn't shattered. An indescribable power was stabilizing the island. Inside the mountain peak, the red light on Yi Chun's body gradually faded. Only his heart was still shining. Waves of surging power rippled out, causing a large number of space-time cracks to appear around Yi Chun. After an unknown amount of time, the red light on his heart also faded, until there was only a little left. Puff! The little red light was extinguished. The instant the red light was extinguished, an invisible wave of air erupted with Yi Chun at the center. The island was instantly torn apart, turning into a rain of stones. Without using any power, Yi Chun floated above the heavenly river. His powerful vitality field gave him the ability to fly in the heavenly river. Is this the late-stage, rank 9 spirit body? Yi Chun felt that his body was filled with endless power. It was as if he would never feel tired or exhausted for the rest of his life. Inside the heart, there was an additional black hole. However, this black hole didn't absorb power. Instead, it spat out power. It had become Yi Chun's perpetual motion machine. Inextinguishable core. This black hole was the inextinguishable core. A rank 7 spirit body could give birth to an inextinguishable power. The inextinguishable power could heal any injury, even the origin. However, the consumption was a little high, so it wasn't obvious in the early stages. With a rank 8 spirit body, there would be more and more inextinguishable power. At the rank 9 spirit body, the inextinguishable power would be like a vast ocean. Apart from the origin injuries caused by saint weapons, it could heal almost any injury. But no matter what, the inextinguishable power would eventually be used up. Once it was used up, it would be extremely difficult to recover. However, it was different with an inextinguishable core. The inextinguishable core would constantly spit out inextinguishable power. Although the amount it spat out wasn't much, it had the advantage of being able to last for a long time. As time passed, the inextinguishable power would accumulate. Apart from that, people with an inextinguishable core were extremely difficult to kill. With the same strength, people with an inextinguishable core were 10 times harder to kill. I wonder if I can cultivate the immortal sword body to the 17th level. Yi Chun sat cross-legged in the void. With a wave of his palm, a large number of rank 3 and 4 supreme swords flew out. Activating the immortal sword body, Yi Chun started to absorb the essence of the supreme swords. A dense sword light bloomed as the 16 sword patterns on Yi Chun's body started to wander. The 16th sword pattern turned from a shallow one to a very deep one, which was above the other 15 sword patterns. However, the 17th sword pattern still hadn't appeared. At this moment, the immortal sword body should be at the peak of the 16th level. Letting out a breath of metal air, Yi Chun shook his head. The 17th level wasn't that easy to break through. Thinking about it, it made sense. If the 16th level could block the attack of a demigod, then wouldn't the 17th level be able to ignore the attack of a demigod? Not going to the Doomsday Volcano again, the Sky Demon Fire Spirit Fruit had made Yi Chun's body resistant. If he took a second one, the effect would be greatly reduced. Moreover, he might not be able to beat that red snake and the Volcano King, especially that red snake. Chapter 14:15. In the Celestial River, the passage of time was hard to detect. Unknowingly, Yi Chun had stayed in the Celestial River for a whole 1,000 years. In these 1,000 years, he followed the main branch of the Celestial River and advanced forward. He encountered a level 5 water monster, a Celestial River wonder, and a headless sovereign. In the end, he watched as the headless sovereign disappeared before his eyes. It turned out that the headless sovereign didn't really exist. It was just an illusion formed by the Celestial River's vital energy from the Obsession Sutra. Apart from the headless sovereign, he also saw other illusions of other sovereigns, and they were all real existences. In the 108th year, Yi Chun saw a huge vortex. It was a vortex that shocked even a legendary sovereign like him, who was almost invincible below the demigod realm. He didn't know how big this vortex was. It was at least several light years away. Even when he was far away from the vortex, Yi Chun felt that he could be sucked away at any time. How did this vortex form? Yi Chun felt a rare trace of nervousness. This wasn't because of fear, but because of the unknown. The unknown always made people curious and nervous. No one knew what would happen. My immortal sword body has already reached the peak of the 16th level. Together with the Xian Wu Saint armor, ordinary elementary demigods might not be able to kill me. Why don't I go in and take a look? Perhaps it was because he was skilled and daring, or perhaps it was because of his inner demons, but Yichen wanted to go in and take a look. After hesitating for a long time, Yichen finally made up his mind. As he got closer and closer to the vortex, the suction became stronger and stronger. Whoosh! Just as Yichen approached the edge of the vortex, a huge suction acted on Yichen's body. Without much resistance, Yichen was instantly sucked into the center of the vortex and disappeared without a trace. Above the endless winding spring, an old man sat cross-legged. He seemed to be dead, and there was no sign of life on his body. However, every once in a while, a golden light would appear on the old man's body. The golden light was sometimes weak and sometimes strong. When it was weak, it was like an illusion, flashing for a moment. When it was strong, a large area of the spring would be dyed by the golden light. Even time and space were corroded by the golden light and became solidified, making it hard for people to breathe. Glug, glug, glug. The spring water boiled and the old man's body glowed with a golden light once again. This time, the golden light was especially intense. The spring water in his vision turned golden and stopped flowing. Under the corrosion of the golden light, time and space turned pale gold. Occasionally, a golden ripple swept past, shaking the universe and reversing the flow of time and space. Demon King Golden Body, defy time. The old man suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were like golden glass, and the golden light pierced through time and space as if he had seen through the true essence of the spring water. Rumble, rumble, the golden light surged like the tide, and the time and space around the old man started to flow in reverse. The old man's white hair gradually darkened, turning from white to gray, then gray. The old man's appearance gradually became younger. 90 years old, 80 years old, 70 years old, 60 years old. Every time a golden ripple passed by, the old man would become younger. But what was strange was that not only did the old man's aura not weaken because of time reversal, it actually became even stronger. It was as if time reversal could only affect his body and not the power he possessed. After an unknown amount of time, the old man was no longer an old man. At this time, he looked about 40 years old, and his expression was exactly the same as the first demon sovereign. As expected of the demon king golden body, it allowed my time profound to reach perfection in an instant. The first demon sovereign felt that his perception had never been so strong before. Of course, the special nature of the future spring was also one of the important reasons why his time profound reached perfection. Plop! Yichen fell into an endless meandering spring water. This spring water was very special. It was actually condensed from the power of time and space. If Yichen was any other supremes, they would probably die in a few breaths without any suspense. Yichen was shocked. His protective, sword energy burst forth, containing the perfect time and space profound to resist the spring water. Could this be one of the 9 springs of hell, the future spring? The Milky Way and the Yellow Springs were 2 sides of the same coin. It was not impossible to come to the future spring from the Milky Way. Yichen was different from the first demon sovereign who had entered the future spring. The future spring could not pose a threat to him. After all, his time and space profound had long reached perfection. On the contrary, the future spring could not pose a threat to him. Instead, it allowed him to see a new world. In the spring water, he could feel traces of obscure time and space law. This time and space law was not oppressive. Instead, it was very friendly to Yichen. Yichen tested it and found that he could guide the flow of time and space of the future spring. He could even reverse the flow of time and space. Right, I can directly use the power of time and space on my martial path Yuan Shun. Yichen thought of a possibility. He did it. Yichen's martial path Yuan Shun floated out and was exposed to the spring water. His body was protected by his time and space profound. The flow of the spring water increased, and the strength of his martial path Yuan Shun also increased. Success! Yichen revealed a look of surprise. He did not expect things to go so smoothly. It was simply an unexpected harvest. What Yichen did not know was that in front of him, the first demon sovereign was reversing the flow of the future spring, and he was accelerating it. Soon, the two's powers would collide. The color of the martial path Yuan Shan was getting purer and purer, and the power it contained was getting more and more terrifying. Very soon, Yi Qin's martial path Yuan Shan reached the intermediate silver rank. At the same time, Yi Qin also broke through from the beginner legendary rank to the intermediate legendary rank. Although the increase in his cultivation didn't increase his combat power, Yi Qin was confident that he could suppress the red snake in battle. Rumble. In front of him, a towering wave suddenly exploded. Yi Qin's body swayed, and his martial path Yuan Shan involuntarily entered his body. What's going on? Yi Qin looked ahead. Amidst the splashing water, Yi Qin saw the figure of the first demon sovereign. The spring water was formed by the power of time and space. It could ignore distance and transmit images. First demon sovereign. Green lotus sword sovereign. The two of them saw each other. Very good. My demon king golden body has reached completion, and I was just about to fight you. The first demon sovereign's voice passed through the splashing water and reached Yi Qin's ears. That's what I was thinking too. An intense battle intent flashed in Yi Qin's eyes. In the end, the two of them were unwilling to be left out. They couldn't beat White Pole Sword Sage and Devil Sage Galois, so they treated each other as their only opponent in the universe, and perhaps in the future. Take my fist. Separated by the endless spring water, the first demon sovereign punched over. The future spring was very special. No matter how far away they were, as long as they could sense each other, they could attack. Distance no longer mattered. Let me see how much you have improved. Yi Qin didn't use the firmament sword. He held the heaven sword and swung it. Chapter 14:16. The fist power and the sword qi clashed together, creating a huge water column. The two continued to attack each other through the water column. It seemed like they would not stop until they reached their goal. My power has increased so much. Yi Qin was a bit surprised. Before his sword intent reached the 9th rank, he was already many times stronger than the first demon lord. But now that his sword intent had reached the 9th rank, he was actually on par with the first demon lord. It was not hard to imagine how much the first demon lord had improved. Yi Qin was astonished, but the first demon sovereign was even more astonished. His demon king golden body had reached the major completion, arousing the dark power in the depths of his bloodline. Not only did his dark yuan spirit break through to the high silver rank, his dark profound was also gradually transforming into the dark law, increasing his strength by countless folds. Under demigod realm, he was close to being invincible. He originally thought that Yi Qin was no longer his opponent, but reality told him that Yi Qin was not any weaker than him. Boom, boom, boom. Time after time, the two could not do anything to each other. Sneering, Yi Qin held his sword with both of his hands and raised it up high. He then threw out a heavy sword attack. The heavy sword light sliced through the waves and reached the first demon lord in an instant. Demon King Golden Body. The first demon lord roared. His body shone with a golden light, along with black lightning. The sword light landed on the first demon lord's body, but it could not cut into his body. It only cut a little bit of his skin before disappearing. It was not the first demon lord's style to take a beating. He threw out a horrifying punch. It was the sublimation of the light and dark fist, dark chaos fist. The heaven and earth turned chaotic. Yi Qin was hit by the first demon lord's punch. This punch was actually made up of countless punches. Yi Qin could not dodge all of them. One of them landed on his chest. Clang! The fist power did not break through Yi Qin's defense like the first demon lord had expected. Instead, it bounced off. Compared to the first demon ancestor's demon king golden body, Yi Qin's peak 16th layer immortal sword body was not the slightest bit inferior. Adding the black tortoise saint armor, Yi Qin's defense was no less than the first demon ancestor's. First demon lord, I didn't expect you to improve so much. I wonder if you have a heavenly saint weapon? Yi Qin pulled out the firmament sword and slashed down angrily. It was still the heavy sword style. Kacha! A soft tearing sound rang out, and a pitch-black hole appeared in the sky above the spring of the future. With the improvement of his martial arts primordial spirit, Yi Chun could activate more of the power of the firmament sword. With his full strength, he immediately tore the space-time of the spring of the future. Of course, compared to the spring of the future, which had no beginning or end, this hole was nothing. The first demon venerable's saint artifact armor shattered all of a sudden, and cracks appeared on the surface of the demon king's golden body. Fortunately, at the critical moment, a black halo emerged from his body and blocked the sword light. Otherwise, even if the first demon venerable didn't die, his origin would be severely injured. He stared at the firmament sword in shock, and without any hesitation, he entered the black crack created by the firmament sword. Is this the law of darkness? Yi Chun frowned slightly. The first demon sovereign speed of improvement was too fast, so fast that it made people's hair stand on end. Yi Chun's current strength was because he had developed in all aspects, but the first demon sovereign had only comprehended a trace of the law of darkness, and yet he was able to erase all of Yi Chun's advantages. One could imagine how terrifying the first demon sovereign would be once he grasped more of the law of darkness. Where there is a will, there is a way. Maybe I could try to find the entrance to the law of darkness. Only powerful demigods could comprehend the law of darkness. Yi Chun didn't know how the first demon sovereign had comprehended it. After all, even Sword Saint Bai Ji and Demon Saint Jia Luo hadn't grasped the law of darkness. However, Yi Chun felt that he could give it a try. Hell Mountain of Time. As time flowed in reverse, a black shadow fell from the void, accompanied by a rain of blood. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the first demon sovereign pursed his lips. Yi Chun's strength was beyond his imagination. Even the first demon sovereign, who had the bloodline of a great demon king, felt extremely strained. The future spring wasn't omnipotent. The stronger one was, the less useful the future spring would be to them. As his Yuan Shun advanced to the intermediate silver rank, Yi Chun discovered that his Yuan Shun seemed to have developed a resistance to the future spring, and its progress was very slow. Without a choice, Yi Chun used the time and space profound to guide the law of time and space of the future spring, accelerating its flow. Only then did his Yuan Shun barely manage to advance to the intermediate silver rank. However, after his Yuan Shun reached the intermediate silver rank, it couldn't advance any further. It was like a pool of stagnant water. Yi Chun faintly felt that this opportunistic trick might cause his Yuan Shun to be unable to break through for a very long time. After all, his foundation was too shallow, and he needed to fill up his own things. As the Yuan Shun entered his body, Yi Chun began to swim in the future spring and began to comprehend the laws. Laws were higher than rules. Normally speaking, laws were inherent, while rules were formed after birth. However, as a martial artist grew stronger, there wasn't much difference between laws and rules. Since one could create rules, then one could also create laws, allowing one's will to replace the operation of heaven and earth. The first demon sovereign's dark chaos fist contained the law of darkness. Even though it was only a trace, it was still impossible for Yi Chun to dodge. If the other party's law of darkness was deep enough, they could completely annihilate Yi Chun with the law of darkness. No, the future spring only contains the law of time and space. With my current realm, I still can't comprehend the law of time or space. After an unknown period of time, Yi Chun woke up. The future spring looked like spring water, but this spring water was formed by the power of time and space. It wasn't real spring water. The entire future spring only contained the power of time and space, and nothing else. Without a medium, Yi Chun would find it hard to comprehend the laws other than the law of time and space. Right. I wonder if the firmament sword contains the law. Yi Chun suddenly had an idea. He wanted to know if the Sky Saint artifact contained the power of law. Otherwise, how could the Sky Saint artifact be so powerful that he couldn't unleash the full power of the firmament sword? His consciousness sank into the firmament sword, and Yi Chun began to search for the origin of the firmament sword. Finally, Yi Chun found a drop of water, a whirlwind, and a transparent crystal in the depths of the firmament sword. In the past, Yi Chun couldn't detect these at all. Now that his martial Dao Yuan soul had reached the advanced silver rank, Yi Chun could do it. The law of water, the law of wind, and the law of space. Yi Chun took a deep breath. There were actually 3 types of law in the origin of the firmament sword. These 3 types of law were very weak, but after combining with the origin, they formed a special characteristic. This special characteristic was the power of the firmament. The stronger the origin and the power of law, the stronger the power of the firmament. Yi Chun vaguely understood the relationship between the saint artifact and the divine stone. The divine stone contained the law of fragmentation. When a law was fragmented to a certain extent, it would decompose into profound meaning. Only by integrating enough divine stones, the saint artifact could gradually evolve until it gave birth to the law and became a sky saint artifact. Chapter 14:17. Splash. The spring of the future flowed endlessly, drifting into the distance. Yi Chun sat cross-legged, drifting with the flow. On his knees was the 3-star heavenly sacred artifact, the firmament sword. As his mind sank into the firmament sword, Yi Chun seemed to have forgotten the passage of time. He carefully comprehended the 3 types of laws in the firmament sword's origin. The law of water was a water droplet, the law of wind was a whirlwind, and the law of space was a transparent crystal. The water droplet that represented the law of water looked calm, but it was turbulent inside. It was like a boundless ocean. When it was quiet, it was calm and without waves. When it was angry, it could destroy the world. The whirlwind that represented the law of wind spun endlessly. As long as Yi Chun's mind came into contact with it, it would immediately be sliced into pieces. He could not approach it at all. This caused Yi Chun to be unable to observe the whirlwind. The transparent crystal that represented the law of space was even more tyrannical. It emitted a transparent, colorless light. When Yi Chun's mind was illuminated by the colorless light, it immediately disappeared without a trace. He could not even approach it, let alone observe the transparent crystal. Yi Chun knew that among the 3 types of laws, the law of water should be the easiest to comprehend. Therefore, it was the easiest to observe. The law of wind was much more tyrannical. He could not comprehend it at this stage, let alone the law of space. After giving up on the law of wind and the law of space, Yi Chun began to fully focus on comprehending the law of water. How peaceful! As his mind observed the surface of the water droplet, Yi Chun felt that his mind was completely still. He had a feeling that he wanted to forget everything. He wanted to throw everything aside and enjoy this feeling of peace. Something's not right. Sword intent surged, and Yi Chun recovered from a state of mind as still as water. Normally, one needed to have a mind as still as water. However, when studying the law of water, one must not have one's mind as still as water. Yi Chun had a premonition that once he sank into it, he might never wake up. With vigilance, Yi Chun's mind carried a trace of sword intent. When he looked at the surface of the water droplet, Yi Chun's mind was like still water. But when he looked at the inside of the water droplet, Yi Chun's mind was abnormally lively, and it was hard to control. His thoughts were flying everywhere, let alone comprehending it. He couldn't even control his own mind. It was so sad that he wanted to vomit blood. No wonder laws can only be comprehended by powerful demigods. But why did the first demon sovereign comprehend the law of darkness? Yi Chun frowned. The reason why powerful demigods could comprehend laws was probably because they had a gold yuan spirit. Wanting to comprehend laws with a silver yuan spirit was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. But since the first demon sovereign comprehended the law of darkness, it was enough to prove that he could comprehend laws without a gold yuan spirit. As for how the first demon sovereign comprehended it, Yi Chun didn't want to know. He had no way of knowing. How could Yi Chun know that after the first demon sovereign cultivated the demon king golden body, he stimulated the power of darkness in the depths of his bloodline? Rather than saying that the law of darkness was comprehended, it was more like it came with him. It was like the profound mysteries in the bodies of the beasts, or the trace of the law of space in Yi Chun's netherworld sacred eye. The ignorant were fearless. Yi Chun continued to comprehend the law of water. In the blink of an eye, 5,000 years passed in the outside world. Within the future spring, a thin mist appeared around Yi Chen's body. The future spring was formed from the power of space and time. Logically speaking, it couldn't contain any other power, but this mist was clearly the power of water. In Yi Chen's soul sea, waves surged. Even the three sword souls were affected. They joined forces to resist. Above the center of the soul sea, a water droplet was forming. 5,000 years in the outside world was countless years in the future spring. If it wasn't for Yi Chen's perfect protection of the power of space and time, he would have long died of old age. Hard work paid off. He really did comprehend a trace of the law of water. The reason why he could comprehend the law of water was largely due to the firmament sword. Otherwise, Yi Chen wouldn't have known what the law of water was. Secondly, the Golden Soul Force also played a big role. This was the soul force of a demigod. Thirdly, the nine-step sword intent couldn't go unnoticed, especially the Radiance sword intent. With the Radiance sword intent in his mind, Yi Chen could observe the law of water with greater clarity. Rumble. The soul sea kept shaking. Yi Chen realized that comprehending the law in advance wasn't necessarily a good thing. His soul sea seemed to be unable to withstand the power of the law. The soul sea was directly related to the martial Dao Yuan Shun. The soul sea was also a place that contained soul force. It was equivalent to a container. This container was too fragile and could easily be damaged. Taking a deep breath, Yi Chen operated the Immortal sword intent to the limit to protect his soul sea. Then, he continued to condense the water droplet. The moment before the water droplet was formed, Yi Chen's Immortal sword intent collapsed. His soul sea was almost torn apart. Fortunately, the water droplet was formed, and the law power was completely restrained. After a long time, Yi Chen opened his eyes. A layer of lustrous light flashed across the surface of his eyes. I finally comprehended a trace of the law of water. I wonder how powerful the five-element sword art will be. Yi Chen was looking forward to it. He held the firmament sword with both hands. Whoosh! Yi Chen slashed out. Five elements sword art's fourth style, heavy sword. The spring of the future was torn apart. A blue sword light flashed, and water vapor filled the air. The other profoundness is suppressed. Yi Chen was a little surprised. It was clearly the heavy sword, but it didn't have the same feeling as before. The real heavy sword gave people a heavy feeling. The blue sword light just now seemed to be condensed from water, but its power was magnified by millions of times. It seems that the law and profoundness can't coexist. The law can only exist by itself. Yi Chen smiled bitterly. From now on, the five-element sword art was useless. The five-element sword art couldn't do without the water profoundness. But now, the water profoundness had become the law of water. In addition, when he used the law of water, Yi Chen's soul sea surged again. Yi Chen estimated that if he continuously used the law of water, his soul sea would definitely collapse. In the future, when he fought with his enemies, the law of water could only be used as a trump card. Of course, if he encountered an enemy below the demigod level, he could easily end the battle once he used the law of water. The only thing that could threaten Yi Chen was the demigod level. If he encountered a demigod, it was best to escape. If he couldn't finish off the opponent in a short time, he would be finished off by the opponent. It's time to leave. Tearing apart the space-time of the spring of the future, Yi Chen flew out. When he reappeared, Yi Chen appeared in hell. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen tore apart the space-time of hell again and left. 1 month later, Yi Chen returned to the 4 major star regions with life. 5,000 years have passed. I will enter the primal chaos battlefield in another 2,000 years. For the first time, Yi Chen felt a little pressed for time. After leaving this time, he didn't know when he would return. It was equivalent to saying goodbye to the people he cared about forever. Yi Chen decided to accompany his parents for the next 2,000 years. Chapter 1418. The Waterbird planet was where the Yi family was based. With Yi Chen's current status and strength, it was not impossible for him to occupy a level 9 life planet, but there was no need for that. The waterbird planet was large enough for the Yi family to survive and develop. Besides, the Yi family also controlled many life planets, ranging from level 1 to level 7. It would be too greedy to occupy a level 9 life planet. In Yi Chen's eyes, the waterbird planet was the most suitable life planet for the Yi family. He planned to set up many traps on the waterbird planet. He believed that these traps would allow the Yi family to prosper for hundreds of thousands or even millions of years. As for the distant future, Yi Chen did not think too much about it. On the waterbird planet, more than 80% was oceans and lakes. Only 10% was land. There were a total of 36 continents and countless islands. To the east of the main continent, the waterbird continent was a beautiful island. It had a white beach, azure seawater, and a light blue sky. Everything was so beautiful. However, if a paragon was here, he would definitely notice that this island was separated from the outside world. It looked like it was in the same world, but it actually contained different laws. The law of water is broad and profound. Just a trace of it has the power to change the world. It is truly awe-inspiring. After returning from the spring of the future, Yi Chen began to study the magical uses of the law of water. This island was where he experimented. After hundreds of years, he had already gained some experience in using the law of water. The Wilds continent contains the law of the Wilds god. I wonder what realm it is. The stronger he was, the more Yi Chen felt the gap between him and a true god. A true god did not control ordinary laws, but the law of God. With Yi Chen's current realm, he could not understand what a law of God was at all. It was just like how ants could not understand the thoughts of humans. Standing in a different position, the perspective of things was also different. This was the biggest difference between a mortal and a true god. He opened his right hand, and a water ball suddenly formed. It was very sudden. It was as if the water ball had always been in Yi Chen's hand. It was just that the invisibility state had been removed. He clenched his fist lightly, and the water ball began to tremble. Correspondingly, the entire waterbird planet also began to tremble subtly. Ripples appeared on the boundless ocean, and in the center of the ocean, the monstrous waves even touched the atmosphere, emitting a power that could destroy the world. Whoosh! The water ball dissipated, and the waterbird star returned to normal in an instant, as if what had happened before was just an illusion. So scary. What just happened? On the waterbird planet, some of the experts still had lingering fears. There's no need to make a fuss. It must be Sword Venerable Green Lotus cultivating. Similar situations have been happening in the past few hundred years. Oh, I see. You scare me. Knowing the reason, those who did not know immediately heaved a sigh of relief. Since Sword Venerable Green Lotus was cultivating, they did not think that there would be any danger staying on the waterbird planet. After all, Sword Venerable Green Lotus's family was also on the waterbird planet. The waterbird star has the most water, so it's most beneficial to my water laws. After grasping a trace of the water laws, Yi Chen could control most of the things in the world that were related to water. If the enemy's martial arts contained the profoundness of water, then sorry, he would not even be able to unleash the complete martial arts. It was just like how Yi Chen could not unleash the complete 5 elements sword technique. In front of the water laws, the profoundness of water did not need to exist at all. Of course, there were also water that Yi Chen could not control, such as the Heavenly River's water. The Heavenly River contained the Heavenly River laws, which were equivalent to the Wilderness God laws. His own water laws were not enough. Swoosh! The water rippled, and Yi Chen disappeared without a trace. When he reappeared, Yi Chen had arrived in the desolate starry sky outside the 4 major life zones. After comprehending a trace of the water laws, Yi Chen naturally wanted to create a sword technique with the water laws as the core. After a few hundred years, he had already made some progress. Standing quietly in the starry sky, Yi Chen closed his eyes. Whoosh! With Yi Chen as the center, an endless stream of water was born, drowning a large part of the starry sky. Billowing sword, his eyes suddenly opened, and Yi Chen pointed his sword finger forward. An extremely terrifying scene happened. The endless stream of water, along with a large number of planets, turned into a huge sword. Wherever the huge sword passed, space-time shattered, and everything was destroyed. In the past, Yi Qin's defense was stronger than his attack, but now, Yi Qin's attack was stronger than his defense, and he had also reached the level of an elementary demigod. Feeling an intense pain in his head, Yi Qin hurriedly withdrew the water laws. This time, the duration of the water laws had been used up, and if he continued to activate the water laws, his soul sea would not be able to withstand it. After several hundred years of experiments, Yi Qin had tested some useful data. When activating the water laws at full force, he could roughly maintain it for 15 minutes, and after that, he would have to rest for a week. In other words, he could only activate the water laws for 15 minutes in a week. Of course, if he activated it separately, the total duration would not be just 15 minutes. For example, if he activated it for a short period of time this time, it would not cause any harm to his soul sea, and the next time he activated it, he could still activate it for 15 minutes. If he used the time reasonably, the restriction would not be too great, and he could activate it for a short period of time every day. The Yi clan had always been very lively, and all the direct descendants lived here. Due to the huge population, the entire clan had slowly expanded into a huge city, which was divided into 3 regions: the central city, the inner city, and the outer city. Each region was unbelievably huge, and there were plains, lakes, mountains, and everything else that should be there. In the central city, in a garden that looked like a sea of flowers, Yi Qin was playing with a group of children. "Grandpa, play with me." "Grandpa, when are you going to teach me sword arts? I'm already 5 years old." "Grandpa." Dozens of children surrounded Yi Qin, either asking for hugs or acting coquettishly, causing Yi Qin to be extremely busy. If there were outsiders here, they would definitely suspect that their eyes were playing tricks on them. The mighty sword Venerable Green Lotus also had times when he was in a difficult situation. "Everyone has already grown up. I wonder when I will have my own children." Yi Qin had a big smile on his face. Some of these children were the descendants of his younger brothers and sisters, some were the descendants of his disciples, and some were the descendants of his friends, such as Luo Hans Han and Zhang Haoren. He was the only one who didn't have any children yet, not to mention descendants. At this moment, Yi Qin felt that time had passed very quickly. In a pavilion far away, Yi Tianhao and Shun Yuqing were smilingly looking at their son playing with the children. Next to them were Yi Xiaoxiao, Yi Xian, Su Jing, and Murong Qingchen. The whole family was here. Yi Tianhao and Shun Yuqing glanced at each other, unable to hide the happiness in their eyes. Indeed, they thought that they were the happiest people in the world. They had many children and grandchildren, and they could see even more children and grandchildren being born. Compared to the lifespan of ordinary people, they could live for 100,000 years. Even if they died after 100,000 years, they would have no regrets. After all, they had lived long enough. Chapter 1419. The spring of the past was easy to obtain, but the stone of 3 lives was hard to come by. The spring of the past and the spring of the future were both directly connected to the mountain of time. The difference was that the spring of the future could only be seen by accelerating the flow of time in the mountain of time, while the spring of the past could only be seen by reversing the flow of time in the mountain of time. At the risk of being hunted down by 9 ghostly sage, Yi Qin obtained the spring of the past. The spring of the past was in essence a special power of time and space. To ordinary supremes, it was undoubtedly a poison. Only Yi Qin, who had perfected the space ultimacy, dared to touch it. To restore Red Lotus Ghostly Lord's memories, the spring of the past alone was not enough. The stone of 3 lives was the most important. Yi Qin had once negotiated with Phoenix Ghostly Sage, hoping to trade for the stone of 3 lives, but the other party had rejected him outright and even destroyed one of his projections as a warning. Later, Yi Qin found out that the stone of 3 lives was more precious than he had imagined. It was a divine object that could only be encountered by chance. In this way, Yi Qin suddenly had no other way. Relying on martial power, he was simply not Hell Go Sage's opponent. Not to mention him, even White Extreme Sword Saint and Demon Saint Gallo would not dare to be arrogant in hell, as they would be in danger of being chased down at every turn. Forget it, this is beyond my ability. Yi Chen shook his head and began to consider another matter. Su Jing's martial path primordial spirit had successfully entered the bronze level and was qualified to enter the chaos battlefield. Murong Qingqing's martial path primordial spirit was a little special and required a type of darkness crystal to break through, which could only be found in the demon's domain. Of course, some unknown secret realms of darkness should also have them, such as the dark galaxy that Yi Chun had once entered. However, these places could not be found easily. It depended on luck. Yi Chun planned to enter the demon's domain alone. Although there was a high chance of encountering Devil Sage Kala, he reckoned that even if he could not defeat the other party, he should be able to escape successfully. Demon's domain, Maelstrom Mystic Realm. The Maelstrom Mystic Realm was one of the top 5 supreme mystic realms in the demon realm. Only those with the strength of a powerful supreme being could enter it. If ordinary supreme beings entered, the death rate would be as high as 10%. 10,000 years ago, an ordinary supreme being died in the Maelstrom Mystic Realm. On this day, an uninvited guest came to the Mystic Maelstrom. Quite a strong pressure. As soon as he entered the secret dimension, Yi Chen immediately felt a powerful force pressing down on him. He was unable to shake it off. Thankfully, the effect was not too great. In the center of the secret realm was a huge whirlpool. This whirlpool seemed to have been blessed by divine power and could exist eternally. The darkness divine crystals came from this whirlpool. Every once in a while, it would spit out a certain amount of darkness divine crystals. Sometimes there would be more, sometimes there would be less. The interval between the time was also long and short. Not all of the darkness divine crystals that were spat out could be found. If no one found them in a short period of time, they would fuse with other objects, making it even harder to find. It's a human supreme being. He actually dares to run into the demon domain. He's really courting death. In the Maelstrom secret realm, 2 powerful supreme demons discovered Yi Chun, and one of them wanted to kill him. Are you crazy? That sword's sovereign green lotus. Run. The other supreme demons hurriedly pulled his friend away. Outside the Maelstrom secret realm, the 2 supreme demons still had lingering fears. How could they have imagined that Yi Chun would come to the demon domain? This was simply impossible. I almost died just now. The supreme demon who wanted to kill Yi Chun turned pale. If he had not been pulled away, he would definitely have rushed forward. Once he angered Yi Chun, he would have been killed with a single strike. Let's go and tell Lord Demon Saint that no matter how strong Sword Sovereign Green Lotus is, he is no match for Lord Demon Saint. That's right. It's precisely because of Sword Sovereign Green Lotus that we demons have been suppressed by the humans. We have suffered countless losses over the years. Since he dares to come to the demon domain, let's make sure he doesn't return. The 2 of them hurried to the area where Demon Saint Garo was. The humans had a sun, and so did the demons. However, the demon's sun was black. When it shone on the planet, it was dim, but not completely invisible. It was as if they had come to another world. Demon Saint Garo was a loner, so he didn't need to occupy a level 9 planet. Instead, he built a dark golden palace on a level 5 planet. The palace was huge, and there were no less than 10,000 palaces of various sizes. The entire planet was protected by a powerful dark force. Even a legendary supreme would find it difficult to break into this planet, let alone destroy it. What do you want? Before the 2 supreme demons got close to the planet, Demon Saint Garo's voice was already heard. One of them said respectfully, Lord Demon Saint, we found Sword Sovereign Green Lotus in the Maelstrom secret realm. We are here to report. Sword Sovereign Green Lotus? Demon Saint Garo was surprised. Is Sword Sovereign White Pole here? We didn't see Sword Sovereign White Pole. He shouldn't be here. The 2 of them were a little hesitant. If Sword Sovereign White Pole was hiding near Yi Chun, how could they find him? However, they thought that Sword Sovereign White Pole would not be so bored. In the palace, Demon Sage Gara frowned. In the entire universe, No one was a match for him other than the white pole sword sage. The only one he was wary of was the white pole sword sage. If the white pole sword sage was not around, a mere green lotus sword sage would be nothing. Could this be a trap? Demon Saint Garo thought. Huh. Suddenly, Demon Saint Garo laughed. He felt that he was too cautious. So what if Sword Sovereign White Pole was here? Could one Sword Sovereign White Pole and Sword Sovereign Green Lotus defeat him? It was not an exaggeration to say that even two Sword Sovereigns would not be able to stop him. At most, he could only escape. Good, you two have done well. In the palace, Demon Saint Garo's figure disappeared instantly. Crackle! With a wave of Yi Chen's hand, a large number of miscellaneous items exploded. This kind of explosion was from the outside to the inside. Once a darkness divine crystal appeared, Yi Chen would immediately control the power. There were many meteorites near the whirlpool. Every time Yi Chen waved his hand, he could destroy hundreds of millions of meteorites. If he used it without restraint, the area of destruction could be even larger. However, there would inevitably be a deviation in the control of the power. If he was not careful, he might destroy the darkness divine crystal that he had spent so much effort to find. Found one. Yi Chen was very efficient. Soon, he found a darkness divine crystal. However, it was not enough. The more, the better. All of a sudden, Yi Chen sensed a wave of extremely powerful dark power approaching. Demon Saint Garo. Yi Chen looked into the depths of the space-time. In the entire demon realm, only Demon Saint Garo had such a powerful power. As expected, when Yi Chen found Demon Saint Garo also found him. Don't even think about escaping. Demon Saint Garo formed a seal with both hands and sealed the entire whirlpool. With his demigod power, he could totally do that. Why should I escape? Yi Chen sneered. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. He had long wanted to see the power of a beginner demigod. After all, he would meet more demigods in the battlefield of chaos. It was very important to know the power of a beginner demigod as soon as possible. Chapter 1420. After sealing off the secret realm, Demon Saint Garo's demonic energy burst forth. Clusters of black bubbles spread out endlessly. In the blink of an eye, everything within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was covered by these black bubbles. It was like a dream. The ninth realm, demonic bubble realm. Yi Chen's pupil shrank. How could he not see that Demon Saint Gallo's realm was extremely rare? Every black bubble was like a world. Countless worlds were squeezing over. Even a beginner demigod would have to avoid it temporarily and could only resist it with a realm of the same level. But Yi Chen was not a beginner demigod. Not daring to waste any time, Yi Chen operated his sword energy with all his might. In the next second, a huge green lotus appeared out of nowhere. With Yi Chen as the nourishment, it expanded crazily. Thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, hundreds of thousands of miles. When the green lotus expanded to hundreds of thousands of miles, Demon Saint Gallo's demonic bubble realm had already covered over, and the two clashed. Boom! For a moment, the sun and the moon dimmed, and the sky changed color. The entire secret realm was shaking. What a powerful force! Yi Chen was blown away. In terms of realm, the Green Lotus Sword realm was no weaker than the demonic bubble realm. However, it depended on who was using it. Yi Chen's Yuan Shun was at the advanced silver level, while Demon Saint Gallo's Yuan Shun was at the gold level. There was a difference of one level between the two. Therefore, the ninth realm that Gallo had used was naturally more powerful than the Green Lotus Sword realm. What's going on? Demon Saint Gallo's brows creased. His demonic bubble domain was extremely tyrannical. Once it broke through the opponent's domain, it would immediately explode on the opponent's body. Each black bubble was equivalent to a super bomb. Under the continuous explosions, no demigod would be able to withstand it. However, Yi Chen didn't seem to be injured at all, not to mention dying. Heavenly Saint armor. Suddenly, Demon Saint Gallo's eyes brightened. Two beams of light shot at Yi Chen's body. He could feel the ripples of a Heavenly Saint weapon on Yi Chen's body. Thinking about it carefully, Only a heavenly saint armor could help him defend against a demigod's attack. If it were someone else, there would be nothing left of them. Sword Venerable Green Lotus, hand over the heavenly saint artifact armor, and I can let you go. Demon Saint Gallo's heart was burning with passion. As long as he could get his hands on the heavenly saint armor, he would be able to suppress Sword Saint Baiji. Most importantly, he would be entering the chaotic battlefield in a little over 1,000 years. A heavenly saint armor would be of great help to him, as it would allow him to defeat any beginner demigods. Demon Saint Gallo, do you think you could defeat me? Stabilizing his body, Yi Chun said. Hearing that, Demon Saint Gallo was stunned for a moment before he burst into laughter. He did not know whether he should call Yi Chun arrogant or naive. Yi Chun actually said that he, a primary demigod, could not do anything to him. This is the funniest joke I've ever heard. Fine, I'll let you know that the gap between us is not something that a mere heavenly saint weapon armor can offset. Although Yi Chun had withstood the impact of his domain, it was not his strongest attack. It could only be considered an ordinary attack. Dark Blood Claw. Without any warning, Demon Saint Gallo's palm passed through time and space. When it reappeared, it had turned into a black and red claw radiance, grabbing at Yi Chun. Everything within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles was within the attack range of the claw radiance. So fast, Yi Chun thought that his reaction was fast enough. The golden soul gave him the reflexes of a demigod, but his body could not keep up. He was a fraction slower and could not dodge in time. Yi Chun crossed his arms in front of his body. Clang! The next moment, blood-red sparks flew everywhere. Yi Chun's whole body was drowned in the blood-red sparks as he was shot out. He did not stop until he crashed into a continent millions of miles behind him, causing it to crumble. Impossible! With a wave of his claw, Demon Saint Gallo already knew the result. Apart from sending Yi Chun flying, this claw did not hurt him at all. He could not believe this. One had to know that the Dark Blood Claw was one of his ultimate arts. When he used it as a beginner demigod, no one below the level of demigod could block it. Could the Sky Saint Tool armor really be so powerful that it could even block the attack of a beginner demigod? Of course, he did not know that Yi Chun had also cultivated the Immortal Sword Body. Together with the Xian Wu Saint armor, most beginner demigods could not hurt Yi Chun. Amidst the dust, Yi Chun raised his head. A red light flashed in his right eye, and a blood-red sword shadow shot out toward Demon Saint Gallo. It was a soul and will attack's secret technique, Sword of Hell. Demon Saint Gallo did not manage to dodge it, and the blood-red sword shadow invaded his sea of soul. For a split second, Demon Saint Gallo felt dizzy. The scene before his eyes blurred, and even Yi Chun's figure became millions of times. Of course, it was only for a split second. In the next moment, Demon Saint Gallo returned to normal. As expected, the Sword of Hell can only stun beginner demigods for a split second. Yi Chun treated Demon Saint Gallo as a test subject. He would know the power of the Sword of Hell once he tried it on Demon Saint Gallo. The effect was not great, but it was not bad either. At least it could stun his opponent for a split second, which was better than nothing at all. In the future, when he encountered beginner demigods in the Chaos battlefield, it would be of some use. Damn it! Demon Saint Gallo, who had come back to his senses, snorted angrily. A black crow flew out from between his eyebrows and entered Yi Chun's Sea of Soul. Soul, Emel's secret technique, Black Crow of Obliteration. If it was Yi Chun in the past, this Black Crow of Obliteration would have given Yi Chun some trouble. In terms of power, the Black Crow of Obliteration was no weaker than the Sword of Hell. Although the Sword of Hell contained Golden Soul Power, Destruction Sword Will, and Hell's Will, the Black Crow of Obliteration lacked Hell's Will. However, the one who cast the Black Crow of Obliteration was Demon Saint Gallo. Demon Saint Gallo's martial primordial spirit was at the gold level, so his control was more exquisite and his attack was purer. As soon as the Black Crow of Obliteration entered Yi Chun's Sea of Soul, it exploded and turned into countless black crows flying everywhere. If it was someone else, their Sea of Soul would definitely not be able to withstand it. However, in Yi Chun's Sea of Soul, Apart from the three great sword souls, there was also a drop of rule of water. This drop of rule of water only released some rule power, and the countless black crows were instantly turned into ashes, vanishing in a thin air like phantoms. Demon St. Gallo, I have a sword. Please take a look. Yichen did not plan to hide his strength. With his current strength, there was no need for him to hide his strength. The firmament's sword was unsheathed, and the rule of water in his sea of soul rippled. Yichen swung the sword. Sword art of the rule of water, sword of waves. Rumble. The entire secret realm of the whirlpool shook violently, and endless waves surged toward Demon St. Gallo. In the next moment, the waves turned into a blue sword light, slashing out angrily. Oh no! Demon St. Gallo felt a hint of danger. He had a strong premonition that if he allowed the blue sword light to slash his body, he would definitely be injured, and even his origin would be damaged. This sword had already posed a threat to his life. His right arm lengthened and extended crazily, and his right hand continued to expand until it was hundreds of thousands of miles long. His right hand, which was covered in black and red light, grabbed the blue sword light, and the two collided. Chapter 1421. Outside the secret whirlpool realm, some supreme demons who had received the news rushed over and were communicating with each other. This Green Lotus swordsman is too arrogant. Humph! Let's see how he can escape this time. The one who spoke was the legendary supreme demons, Giant Demon Venerable. Giant Demon Venerable had been very sullen for the past 20,000 years. He had been taught a lesson by Yi Chun and the first Demon Venerable, especially that time when he was taught a lesson by Yi Chun. He had almost lost his life. If it wasn't for Yi Chun's projection doppelganger, if it wasn't for Demon St. Gallo destroying his projection doppelganger, he would have been dead for sure. This made him hate Yi Chun very much. However, with his strength, it was impossible for him to take revenge. Demon St. Gallo, no one can save him. Sky Demon Sovereign inwardly nodded. To this day, he was not even the third head of the demon clan. Giant Demon Sovereign and First Demon Sovereign were already ahead of him. Seeing that Yi Chun, who used to be like an ant in his eyes, had already become an existence that he had to look up to, he couldn't help but feel somewhat envious. More and more supreme demons arrived, including the first Demon Venerable. Among them, only he had fought with Yi Chun, so he was the one who understood Yi Chun the most. However, when he knew that Demon St. Gallo was going to fight with Yi Chun personally, he couldn't help but frown. Yi Chun was definitely the strongest opponent he had ever had in his life. He had never really suppressed him before, but he had been suppressed by him until now. Unfortunately, a Supreme Demon Venerable was a Supreme Demon Venerable after all. It was not easy for him to fight against a primary demigod. Boom, boom, boom. The huge secret whirlpool realm started to shake slightly. Even the people outside the secret whirlpool realm could feel it, which shocked them. The secret whirlpool realm was so huge that if a normal Supreme Demon Venerable didn't know the way, they could easily get lost in it. Even a powerful Supreme Demon Venerable would need 3 to 5 years to pass through the secret whirlpool realm. What made the secret whirlpool realm shake? In their opinion, Demon St. Gallo should be able to recruit Yi Chun without any resistance. In the center of the secret realm, a huge blue-red light ball that was thousands of miles in size was born. In the next moment, the blue-red light ball expanded crazily, from thousands of miles in size to tens of millions of miles in size, and it was still expanding, as if it was going to devour everything and destroy the entire secret realm. As for Yi Chun and Demon St. Gallo, they had long been devoured by the blue-red light ball. When the blue-red light ball expanded to hundreds of millions of miles, it finally exploded. The violent shock wave tore the space apart, and the dreadful blue-red energy leaked out through the space-time crack. What is this? Outside the secret realm, the Supremes of the demons felt a strong tremor. All of a sudden, they saw countless beams of blue and red light shooting out from the secret realm. The entire secret realm was like a broken crystal filled with light, or a giant shining hedgehog, lighting up half of the demonic realm. So many darkness divine gems. Inside the whirlpool's secret realm, Yi Chen's eyes brightened. The explosion of the blue-red light sphere had flattened everything within his line of sight, causing darkness god crystals to appear everywhere. However, the might of the blue-red light sphere was too great, and the majority of the darkness god crystals had been destroyed. Only 1% of the darkness god crystals had survived due to their proximity to the secret realm. Bearing the impact of the remaining energy, Yi Chun started to collect the darkness divine gems. With the Xianwu sacred armor, he seemed to have it easier than Demon Saint Gallo. But Yi Chun knew very well that although his defense was better than Demon Saint Gallo's, if the battle continued, he would definitely lose. First of all, the inability to use the water rule was a big problem. The water rule? Yes, that was indeed the fluctuation of the water rule. What is going on? A Supremes can actually comprehend the water rule? This is something that most high-level demigods can't do. Demon Saint Gallo was dumbfounded. It was unbelievable. Even he couldn't comprehend the power of the rule, but Yi Chun did. He is just a Supremes. He can't endure the power of the rule for a long time. Demon Saint Gallo was a demigod after all, so he reacted quickly. Sword Lord Green Lotus die. Demon Saint Gallo formed a seal with both hands, and a dark red cage fell from the sky, trapping Yi Chun inside. Supreme Martial Art, Dark Blood Cage. This move didn't have much power, and it was used to trap enemies. Even a low-level demigod wouldn't be able to escape in a short time. World Wander. Yi Chun frowned and quickly performed the space-time movement skill, trying to escape from the Dark Blood Cage. However, what surprised him was that the World Wander, which had always been successful, didn't work. He seemed to be trapped in an invisible spider web, unable to leave the Dark Blood Cage through space-time. Instead, he was trapped deeper and deeper, unable to get out. If this move of mine was so easy to break, I wouldn't have used it. Unless you can comprehend the power of the space rule, you won't be able to leave through space-time. Demon Saint Gallo was very confident in the Dark Blood Cage. The space-time in the Dark Blood Cage was broken, and breaking through space-time was even more difficult than breaking through the cage. Moreover, he already knew that Yi Chen's space and time ultimacy had reached perfection. How could he make such a mistake? As long as he could trap Yi Chun, he would be able to defeat him slowly. Amazing. It's also a supreme martial art, but when a low-level demigod uses it, it's flawless. Yi Chun praised in his heart, but it's far from enough to make me surrender. Yi Chun laughed, and his whole body suddenly turned into a waterman. The next moment, the waterman dashed to the edge of the Dark Blood Cage. As if he was going through a wall, he passed through the Dark Blood Cage and appeared outside. Law of Water Martial Art, Water Travel Art. After comprehending the water law, Yi Chun could borrow the water law of the heaven and earth to appear anywhere. Nothing could stop him, unless the opponent had also comprehended the power of law. This was the perverse aspect of the power of law. It had the ability to surpass everything else. Demon Saint Gallo, see you later. After escaping from the Dark Blood Cage, Yi Chun didn't remove the waterman form. With a flash, he disappeared without a trace. Demon Saint Gallo's seal seemed so laughable. This kid has grown. Forget it. Demon Saint Gallo was disappointed. He knew that from now on, he couldn't do anything to Yi Chun. Yi Chun's research on the law of water was not shallow, and he had even created the water travel art. Although he was a demigod, as long as he didn't comprehend the power of law, he couldn't do anything to the water travel art. Of course, if he reached the mid-level demigod level, he might have a chance. After removing the seal, Demon Saint Gallo came out of the whirlpool's secret realm. Lord, Sword Venerable Green Lotus. The Supreme's demons didn't know what happened inside, so Sky Demon Venerable asked. Demon Saint Gallo waved his hand. From now on, don't provoke Sword Venerable Green Lotus, or you'll have to bear the consequences. After saying that, Demon Saint Gallo disappeared in front of everyone. Don't provoke Sword Venerable Green Lotus? Everyone looked at each other. Obviously, Demon Saint Gallo couldn't do anything to Yi Chun, and Yi Chun escaped. Chapter 1422. Time flew by. and the last 2,000 years had passed. The chaos battlefield was about to open. Take care. After bidding farewell to his family, Yi Chun, Murong Qingsheng, and Su Jing left Waterbird Planet instantly. When they appeared again, they were in the vast starry sky. This starry sky was said to be the center of the entire universe. The human race, demons, evil spirit race, giant race, and other major races lived around this starry sky. Many supremes had arrived. Some of them nodded in greeting when they saw Yi Chun. Sword Venerable Green Lotus reputation had reached its peak after Yi Chun fought with Demon Sage Gallows and escaped unscathed. Basically, everyone had already regarded Yi Chun as a demigod. All my efforts have not been in vain. With a flash of blade light, Dugu Ju appeared near Yi Chun. As the chaos battlefield was about to open, Dugu Ju's emotions began to surge. The universe was still too small for him. He needed a more intense environment to train himself, and the chaos battlefield was undoubtedly the most suitable place. There were elites from various universes there, and experts emerged endlessly. It was unlike the universe, where there were only so many supremes. Unless there was a war, they might not be able to fight to their heart's content even after thousands or tens of thousands of years. Yan Qingxian and Dantai Mingwei had also come. With Yi Chun's help, the three of them had condensed the bronze martial path Yuan soul very early. After all, they all came from the same world, and it was good to help as much as possible. Besides the help and experience, Yi Chun had also given them some sage artifacts, all of which were 7-star and above Earth Sage artifacts. With these Earth Sage artifacts, their strength had improved qualitatively. After a few days, all the Supremes who could come had arrived. Demon Sage Gallows and Sword Sage Baiji also appeared one after another. Little Friend Green Lotus. Sword Sage Baiji greeted Yi Chun. Sword Sage. Yi Chun smiled and nodded. Ever since Yi Chun had displayed heaven-defying strength, Sword Saint Baiji no longer saw Yi Chun as a junior, but as a peer. At their level, it was easy for them to live for millions of years. Age did not mean much to them. Yi Chun, some of the Supremes seemed very unfamiliar. Su Jing swept her gaze around and said. Murong Qingxing nodded and continued. I don't know where that red-haired old monster came from. There isn't a single supreme martial artist around him, so he probably doesn't interact much with people. Yi Chun said, there are many places in the universe that we haven't discovered yet. For example, few people go to the edge of the universe. It's normal for some unfamiliar paragons to appear there. If one did not personally experience it, who would know that there was a wilderness god continent in the starry sky of the universe? The number of sovereigns there was thousands of times more than the number of sovereigns in the outside world. No one would be able to imagine such a thing. Thus, Yi Chun was not surprised by the appearance of unfamiliar sovereigns. On the contrary, he felt that it was only natural. On the 5th day, rumble, the vast starry sky trembled. Endless chaotic light erupted, lasting for a full 10 minutes before gradually fading away. Everyone focused their eyes and saw a majestic gate appear in the distance. This gate seemed both real and illusory, and the gate was tightly shut. The gate of chaos has appeared, everyone exclaimed. Then, they held their breaths and waited for the gate of chaos to open. Creak! Finally, the gate of chaos opened with a boom. Endless gentle light gushed out and enveloped everyone. The next moment, be it ordinary sovereigns or legendary sovereigns, or even Demon Saint Baiji or Sword Saint Baiji, they were all sucked in by mysterious power. They had no ability to resist at all. Yi Chun held Su Jing and Murong Qingxing's hands tightly. The three of them disappeared into the gate of chaos. After everyone had been sucked in, the gate of chaos did not disappear. Instead, it shot out beams of light. In a short while, more than 10 figures were sucked in. Bastard, I don't want to go in. Damn it. I've already sealed myself, but it's still useless. Following the curses, the gate of chaos closed and rapidly dimmed. In the next 100,000 years, the strongest battle strength in the entire universe would be at the level of sovereigns. Moreover, the number of sovereigns would decrease by more than half. The originally unimportant 8th layer life and death heavenly sovereigns would become important from now on. After all, sovereigns were born from 8th layer life and death heavenly sovereigns. Once a race had one more sovereign, its overall strength would soar. This is the primal chaos battlefield. After Yi Chen woke up, he discovered that Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng were not by his side. He seemed to be on an uninhabited island, because he could hear the sound of ocean waves in the distance. What a powerful binding force! Yi Chen's expression suddenly changed. He sensed a peculiar law, one that was completely different from the laws of the universe. Under the binding of this formidable law, his every movement was suppressed. This feeling was similar to the Huangshan continent. No, the binding force was even stronger than the Huangshan continent. It should be the primal chaos law. Yi Chen had obtained a lot of information regarding the primal chaos battlefield from Sword Saint White Pole. For example, the entire primal chaos battlefield was covered by the primal chaos law. This kind of law power was supreme, and even true gods couldn't interfere with it. In the primal chaos battlefield, profound power was extremely weak, and only law power could display its might. For example, by relying on perfect space-time profound, Yi Chen could freely shuttle through the universe. However, on this uninhabited island, Yi Chen couldn't shuttle through space-time at all. Without using the water law and the heavenly saint weapon, Firmament Sword, he could only cleave 4 or 5 trees in half, which was equivalent to turning a Superman into an ordinary person. Fortunately, I comprehended the water law in advance. Yi Chen was somewhat glad. The primal chaos battlefield was even more frightening than he had imagined. Without using law power and a heavenly saint weapon, he simply couldn't destroy anything. As a dignified legendary sovereign, he could only chop down 4 or 5 trees. Extending his left hand, Yi Chen condensed a ball of water and threw it to the ground not far away. Rumble. 100-meter wide and 10-meter deep pit appeared. A powerful shock wave radiated in all directions, blowing Yi Chen up. As for the surrounding trees, they were uprooted. It was as if a gale had passed through, leaving not a single blade of grass behind. Stumbling and landing on the ground, Yi Chen nodded in satisfaction. The power of law was still very powerful. Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng both have heavenly saint weapons. They shouldn't be in any danger for the time being. It was actually a good thing that the primal chaos battlefield had a powerful binding force. With the strength of Su Jing and Murong Qingsheng, they were undoubtedly the weakest group in the primal chaos battlefield. However, in a situation where their strength was limitlessly bound, whether they had heavenly saint weapons or not was very important. After all, heavenly saint weapons contain the power of law, and the power of law in the primal chaos battlefield could unleash relatively terrifying might. Caw! Suddenly, a bird's cry came from the sky. Yi Chen looked up and couldn't help but squint his eyes. It was a giant bird of unknown size. When it flew over the deserted island, its shadow shrouded almost half of the deserted island. Most importantly, Yi Chen felt a strong sense of threat from this giant bird. This proved that it could kill him. Chapter 1423. It's at least a level 7 chaos creature. Yi Chen thought to himself, chaos creatures were creatures that evolved naturally in the chaos battlefield. According to their combat strength, they were divided into levels 1 to 10. Level 1 chaos creatures were the weakest and smallest, such as chaos ants, chaos flying insects, and chaos beetles. Level 2 chaos creatures were a level higher in both size and strength, such as chaos birds and chaos rats. Level 3 chaos creatures were a level higher than chaos wildcats and chaos water snakes, whose combat strength was equivalent to a supreme. Level 4 chaos creatures were equivalent to a legendary supreme, such as chaos wolves, chaos leopards, chaos tigers, and chaos sharks. Level 5 chaos creatures were equivalent to a demigod, such as chaos earth dragons, chaos pythons, and chaos whales. Level 6 chaos creatures had a leap in strength. If level 4 chaos creatures joined forces, they might be able to kill level 5 chaos creatures, but level 5 chaos creatures would never be able to kill level 6 Chaos Creatures. Level 6 Chaos Creatures were Chaos Flying Dragons, Chaos Two-Headed Birds, and Chaos Tyrannosauruses, whose combat strength was equivalent to an elementary demigod. Level 7 Chaos Creatures were huge and could instantly kill level 6 Chaos Creatures in terms of size and strength. According to the bird size and aura, it was at least a level 7 Chaos life form. Outsiders wouldn't be able to contend against it. It could be said that Chaos life forms were the natives of the Chaos battlefield. They ruled this world, and the outsiders had to find a better way to survive. Amidst the howling wind, the giant bird flew over the deserted island, not noticing Yi-Chen at all. The deserted island was huge and overgrown with weeds. Yi-Chen searched the island several times, but didn't see a single person. Instead, Chaos Creatures were all over the island, which gave Yi-Chen a lot of trouble. If only Sky Splitter was here. Yi-Chen sighed. Beasts couldn't enter the Chaos battlefield. Sky Splitter, the king of bear dogs, was left in the universe by Yi-Chen. Yi-Chen only asked it to help the Yi family at a critical moment and didn't ask it to protect the Yi family for a lifetime. That would be too lonely, and it wasn't necessary. He believed that the vastness of the universe was enough for it to adventure for a lifetime. The reason why he thought of Sky Splitter was that the Chaos battlefield was special. Profound meanings weren't of much use here, and only primitive abilities were useful. In this aspect, Yi-Chen was far from Sky Splitter. Goo goo goo. His stomach growled. Yi-Chen smiled bitterly. The primal Chaos battlefield was very similar to the desolate God continent. Of course, there were still some differences between the wilderness God continent and the primal Chaos battlefield. If one did not eat meat on the wilderness God continent, their strength would decline. In other words, as long as their strength did not decline to the limit, they could actually not eat. However, the primal Chaos battlefield was different. It would make you feel hungry, and if you did not eat, you would not have the energy to do anything. After killing a level 4 Chaos wild boar, Yi-Chen started a fire. Chi! A spark appeared on his finger, but it was quickly extinguished. Yi-Chen shook his head, a little speechless. The profound of fire couldn't even start a fire. It was easy to imagine how weak the profound of fire was in this place. Left with no choice, Yi-Chen began to use the most primitive method to start a fire, drilling wood to make fire. After a while, a flame rose and lit the bonfire. After filling his stomach, Yi-Chen continued on his way. He wanted to go to the edge of the island and then build a raft to leave this deserted island. Following the stream, Yi-Chen arrived at the seaside without any mishaps. Looking up, he could not see the end of the vast sea. It was boundless, and the waves were surging. Because it could not fly, the puppet battleship was too fragile. Hence, Yi-Chen had to build a raft that was sturdy enough. Yi-Chen discovered that there was a kind of light yellow tree on the deserted island that was very suitable for building rafts. This kind of tree was not only several times lighter than other trees, but it was also abnormally hard and tenacious. It could withstand a lot of pressure. After spending 4 hours, a 10-meter-long, 5-meter-wide raft appeared on the beach. The raft had 2 simple cabins and an animal skin sail. After pushing the raft into the water, Yi-Chen jumped in. In the blink of an eye, Yi-Chen drifted on the sea for 3 days. Rumble. On this day, the raft started to shake violently, as if something was hitting the raft from below. Walking out of the cabin, Yi-Chen stood on the side of the raft and glanced into the water. There was a 4-meter-long shadow swimming back and forth, its body tall and powerful. Chaos Gray Shark. Yi-Chen's brows creased. The Chaos Gray Shark was a rank 4 Chaos creature with the battle power of a legend rank supreme. Just now, it was only a probing attack. If it were to get serious, the raft would definitely fall apart. Although he still had 3 rafts in his storage ring, there were too many dangers in the ocean. Using one would be one less. Naturally, Yi-Chen had to save them. Without any hesitation, Yi-Chen jumped into the water. The binding power of the Chaos battlefield was too strong. Without using the water rule and the sky sword, Yi-Chen could not kill the Chaos Gray Shark through the water. Moreover, he was also afraid of affecting the raft. In the water, Yi-Chen swam even more nimbly than the Chaos Gray Shark. He pulled out his sword and stabbed it to death. The Chaos Gray Shark was only an ordinary kind of Chaos Gray Shark. In the next few days, Yi Chen saw all kinds of Chaos Gray Sharks. Most of them were under 10 meters, and some were over 10 meters. Although these Chaos Gray Sharks could not do anything to Yi Chen, they brought him quite a bit of trouble. After drifting for nearly a month, Yi Chen finally saw the coastline. It was a large island. Judging from the coastline, it was more than 100 times larger than the barren island. Riding the raft closer to the coast, Yi Chen raised his brows. He saw smoke curling up from a kitchen not far away. Someone was lighting a fire. Putting away the raft, Yi Chen walked in the direction of the smoke. Not someone from the mysterious yellow cosmos. In the distance, Yi Chen saw a strange man with 3 heads and 6 arms lighting a fire. Seeing Yi Chen, the other party was also very vigilant, carefully sizing up Yi Chen. "Who are you?" What surprised Yi Chen was that the other party's language was the same as the language of the mysterious yellow cosmos. Perhaps the chaos law had already unified the languages of the various universes. Otherwise, there was no way to communicate. "I am Yi Chen from the mysterious yellow cosmos." The universe that Yi Chen was in was called the mysterious yellow cosmos. "I am Meng Tuo from the ancient multiverse." The strange man with 3 heads and 6 arms said, "Are you the only one on this island?" Yi Chen started chatting with the other party. "Other than me, there are other people on the island. I'm not sure how many of them are exactly. We rarely interact." Meng Tuo shook his head. "Why don't you leave this island?" Although this island was huge, it was still an island. "Nothing. I just don't want to leave for now." A strange look flashed in Meng Tuo's eyes. "Oh, then I won't disturb you anymore." Yi Chen turned and left. One less person means one less competitor. "I hope he will leave in a few days," Meng Tuo thought to himself. Chapter 1424. Apart from Meng Tuo of ancient multiverse, Yi Chen also saw many people from other universes on the island. Some had 3 tails, some had 1 eye, and some had mouths growing all over their bodies. Each and every one of them had a strange appearance, allowing Yi Chen to broaden his horizons. A 1-meter-tall, ball-like life form from another universe took the initiative to greet Yi Chen. He said that he was from Longby Universe, and his name was Tuanzi. "Are you saying that there might be a primal chaos talisman on this island?" Yi Chen looked at Tuanzi's eyes. The other party's eyes were too small, like 2 black beans, but they were quite cute. "That's right. Although there are more primal chaos talisman on the continent, the competition is too intense. The island is different, the competition is much smaller, and the bigger the island, the higher the probability of primal chaos talisman appearing. This is also the reason why we are not in a hurry to leave." Tuanzi said honestly. "Why are you telling me?" Yi Chen felt a little strange. Everyone who came to the primal chaos battlefield only had one goal, and that was to gather primal chaos talisman 1 to 99. Only by gathering 99 primal chaos talisman in order would one be qualified to enter the heaven realm. For a primal chaos talisman, it was normal to fight to the death. Tuanzi stretched out his chubby arm and touched his head. "I am too weak, and it is impossible for me to snatch the primal chaos talisman. Since you can come here from other islands, your strength must be very strong. After you obtain this primal chaos talisman, can you bring me to the continent?" Yi Chen thought about it and nodded. "All right, as long as there is a primal chaos talisman here, I will bring you to the continent." In Yi Chen's opinion, once the primal chaos talisman appeared, the chances of him not getting it were very small. After all, the primal chaos battlefield was so big, and it was impossible for there to be elites everywhere. Hearing this, Tuanzi was overjoyed. When he reached the continent, as long as he didn't participate in the competition, he would be able to live a peaceful life for 100,000 years. Our Longby universe is one of the weakest universes, but your black-yellow universe is very strong, and your combat skills are very good. You have to pay special attention to the Ancient Universe, Heaven Tyrant Universe, and Emperor Heaven Universe. They are especially good at combat, and are like fish in water in the Primal Chaos battlefield. Tuanzi reminded. Yi Chen nodded. The Primal Chaos battlefield was covered by the laws of Primal Chaos. Be it speed, strength, or energy, they were all suppressed to an extremely low level. In the past, you could throw out thousands or tens of thousands of punches in an instant. But in the primal chaos battlefield, it was already considered amazing to be able to throw out a dozen punches in an instant. This caused battle techniques to be especially important. For example, Meng Ta from the ancient multiverse had 3 heads and 6 arms. This wasn't just for show. Fortunately, Yi Chun felt that he was also good at combat techniques, so there was no need for him to admit defeat. For the sake of the Chaos Talisman, Yi Chun could only temporarily stay on the island. This island was a few hundred times larger than the previous one, and the amount of lightwood on it was also a few hundred times greater. This allowed Yi Chun to build more and better rafts. Every day, Yi Chun would either build a raft or search for lightwood all over the island. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. A roar came from the jungle. A chaos tiger pounced on Yi Chun with a foul wind. Tuanzi was so scared that he hid behind Yi Chun. His chubby body trembled like a pile of jelly. Puff! Tuanzi didn't see how Yi Chun drew out his sword. All he saw was a flash of sword light. Blood splashed out from the neck of the chaos tiger, and its huge body slid away on the ground. Awesome! Tuanzi exclaimed. Every time he saw Yi Chun use his sword, he couldn't help but feel terrified. Each of his sword strikes was a fatal blow. Yi Chun came here to collect lightwood. After making 20 small rafts, Yi Chun planned to build a big ship, but a big ship would need a lot of wood. Fortunately, there were enough light wood on this island. Buzz! In the afternoon, a golden beam of light suddenly shot up into the sky from the center of the island. It was extremely dazzling. The Chaos Talisman has appeared. Tuanzi exclaimed. You stay here. Yi Chun's face turned serious. He dashed towards the direction of the golden beam of light. Tuanzi looked around and climbed up a tree. It's the Chaos Talisman. On the other side of the island, Meng Tuo threw down the barbecued meat in his hand. He stared at the golden beam of light. 100,000 years seemed long enough, but it was not easy to collect 99 Chaos Talismans in order. One was one. Maybe at the last moment, it would be the one that was missing. 2 of his 6 arms were on the ground. Meng Tuo ran out like a beast. This Chaos Talisman will belong to me, Zachary. Zachary was a life form from the sky-dominating universe. He was tall, more than 2 meters tall. There were some tentacles on his chin. His eyes were like copper bells. 2 fangs extended out of his mouth, which looked like the teeth of a wild boar. His skin was not flesh, but dark red keratin like crocodile skin. This made him look extremely dangerous and scary. Crack! The ground cracked. Zachary dashed away. As the golden beam shot into the sky, most of the life forms on the island rushed over. They all wanted to get the Chaos Talisman. Conflicts were inevitable. It's from the ancient multiverse. A universe life form with sarcomas on his head was running. He glanced at Meng Tuo, who was approaching. His expression turned unnatural. The ancient multiverse was one of the strongest universes. The life forms there were very good at fighting. The other universes couldn't compare. Not everyone in the ancient multiverse is strong. Maybe this one is very weak. Without reducing his speed, the 2 of them got closer. Get lost! Meng Tuo's body spun in the air. Dense blade lights flew out like a drill. Poochie! The universe life form with sarcomas on his head flew out. His body was full of blade wounds. So scary. I don't even have the power to resist. After sending the opponent flying, Meng Tuo continued running like a beast. His speed didn't slow down at all. At the same time, as Zachary was dashing forward, he grabbed the head of an otherverse life form. With a crack, the head exploded, and the other party died without being able to react from start to finish. Zachary's explosive power was too ferocious. Before the golden light column appeared, Yi Chun was looking for the light wood in the jungle, so he was the closest to the golden light column. After half an hour, Yi Chun saw the root of the golden light column. There was a golden light sphere, and inside it there was a vague object. Increasing his speed, Yi Chun was only 10 meters away from the golden beam. Get lost! A sharp piercing sound came from the right. An other universe life form with long arms and a long spear dashed over. Yi Chen's expression didn't change. He continued to increase his speed. With a swoosh, the golden ball was destroyed. A golden talisman appeared in Yi Chen's hand. On it was the number 27. It's the 27th Chaos Talisman. Sizing up the primal Chaos Talisman, he put away, hand over the Chaos Talisman. The other universe life form's face was gloomy. Seeing his Chaos Talisman fall into someone else's hand, he was furious. Chapter 1425. Sorry, I have no reason to hand over what is in my hands. As for the upcoming battle, Yi Chen was looking forward to it. He had never fought with an other universe life form before and didn't know the characteristics of the other party. If he could grasp these characteristics, he wouldn't be caught off guard when he encountered more powerful other universe life forms in the future. Therefore, Yi Chen wouldn't use the law of water or the firmament sword. Without using the law of water, Yi Chen would barely have the strength of a beginner demigod. If he didn't use the firmament sword, he would be at the quasi-demigod level. After all, in the past 20,000 years, Yi Chen had improved a lot. His martial primordial spirit had broken through from the beginner silver level to the advanced silver level, and his soul had also turned into a golden soul. Then die. The other universe life form roared and thrust his spear over. The other party's arm was too long, almost reaching the soles of his feet. In addition to the length of the spear, this spear could hit Yi Chen from far away, and it was even more difficult for Yi Chen to attack the other party. The length of the sky sword wasn't even 1/3 of the other party's length. Ding! Yi Chen blocked the other party's spear with his sword. Die! The spear stabbed at Yi Chen one after another, and the spear flowers bloomed, getting faster and faster. Vibration! Yi Chen raised his eyebrows. The other party's arm was very long, and when it was stretched, it would produce a vibration force. Don't underestimate this vibration force. In fact, if it was in the universe, this vibration force would be very terrifying. The vibration force caused by the profound meaning of yin and yang, combined with the other party's body structure, was enough to destroy everything. However, this was the primal chaos battlefield, and everything was suppressed within an extremely small area. Only by experiencing it personally would one be able to feel it. At this moment, Yi Chen clearly felt that his arm was a little numb. Vibration universe life forms are extremely good at using vibration force. This person is going to lose. As time passed, other universe life forms rushed over. There were Meng Ta, Zachary, and other universe life forms, a total of more than 10 figures. Damn it, they're all here. He did not care about the others, but he was very wary of the life forms from the ancient multiverse and Sky Tyrant universe. The life forms from the ancient multiverse had 3 heads and 6 arms, which meant that when 3 people surrounded you, no matter how strong the vibrations were, they would only be able to numb 1 or 2 of the opponent's arms. The remaining 4 arms were not to be trifled with. As for the Sky Tyrant universe, they were even more terrifying to a certain extent. Their body structure was very special, and they could be immune to many physical attacks, including vibrations. No, I have to go all out. If I miss this chance, I don't know when I'll get another Chaos Talisman. Gritting his teeth, he abruptly retracted his arm, and then quickly shot out. The long spear was like a furious flood dragon, and with the power of rotation and vibration, it charged towards Yi Chen. This was his killing move, Furious Whirlwind Dragon Spear. Almost there, Yi Chen had already figured out the characteristics of the life forms from the Shocking Universe. Their body structure was like rubber, which was naturally good at using vibrations, and it would not bring too much burden to their bodies. Unfortunately, the opponent's strength was only at the high-level legendary rank. No matter how strong the vibrations were, they were still weaker than the opponent. The third style of the 4 symbols sword art, Annihilation Sword, was executed. Yi Chen sent the opponent's long spear flying, and it stabbed into a towering tree nearby. The body of the spear was still vibrating, emitting a buzzing sound. All of you, come at me together. Yi Chen's gaze swept across Meng Tuo and the rest. This should be his true strength. Meng Tuo and Zachary's expression turned solemn. Obviously, Yi Chen had not used his full strength before. Once he got serious, The life forms from the shocking universe would not be his match, although they felt that they were much stronger than this life form. Yichen was also not a fish on the chopping board. "I'll go first," Zachary roared, and a fist flew towards Yichen. The powerful fist wind swept up the leaves on the ground, and the momentum was astonishing. What a tyrannical fist! Yichen could more or less see Zachary's characteristics, which were big and bold was built on strong confidence. Obviously, the opponent also had his own unique points. After estimating the strength of this fist, Yichen slashed over with his sword. Clang! The fist and sword clashed, but Yichen and Zachary did not retreat even half a step. Again, Zachary seemed to not feel the impact at all, and his right leg swept towards Yichen's waist like a bolt of lightning. Yichen's face flashed with surprise, and he quickly dodged. One kick after another, one punch after another, Zachary became more and more courageous, and also let everyone see the uniqueness of the life forms from the Heaven Tyrant universe. Although their bodies looked very strong, and their defense was extremely strong, their insides were like a sponge. No matter how strong the force was, it would be dissolved by 70 to 80%. So that's how it is. Gradually, Yichen understood. The internal structure of the life forms from the Heaven Tyrant universe was similar to a beehive, and they could withstand a lot of pressure without being damaged. If he used 100% of his strength, only 10% or 20% of his strength would be effective, and with the physical strength of the life forms from the Heaven Tyrant universe, this bit of damage was nothing. Yin-Yang Wuji. Since he understood the uniqueness of the life forms from the Heaven Tyrant universe, Yichen naturally had a solution. Yin-Yang Sword Art's third style, Yin-Yang Wuji, was executed. Yichen's sword suddenly softened, and like a twisted sword light, it followed Zachary's flaws. No matter how Zachary counterattacked, the sword light did not clash head-on with him, and it avoided the strong and weak points, causing Zachary to retreat in a sorry state, and he no longer had the indomitable momentum from before. Pucci. The sword light was like a poisonous snake, drilling a bloody hole in Zachary's chest. His opponent's body structure was also not immune to it. Yichen's Yin-Yang Wuji looked gentle, but in fact, there was a hardness within that gentleness. The power was condensed like a needle, and it was almost impossible to dissolve. Whirlwind Slash. From the side, a spiraling blade light rushed over. It was Meng Ta. Meng Ta was a life form from the ancient multiverse universe, and he was born with 3 heads and 6 arms. This caused his attacks to be different from other life forms from the other universes. It was continuous, as if there was no end to it, and there was no gap in the middle. In a situation where the attack power was similar, the life forms from the ancient multiverse universe could instantly kill their opponent like it was a game. 6 arms holding 6 blades. Meng Ta's body spun as he attacked Yichen. The blade light was connected in a chain, and not to mention dealing with it. Even dodging was difficult. As for Meng Ta, even if Yichen did not probe him, he knew his opponent's specialty. 3 heads and 6 arms. It was equivalent to 3 people fusing into one, and 1 person was equivalent to 3 people. However, there was no perfect object in this world, and Yichen would never be fooled by a perfect person's appearance. 3 heads and 6 arms might seem powerful, but one had to know that the more frequent the attacks, the more openings there would be. Most importantly, the center of gravity of 3 heads and 6 arms could be easily grasped, and there would be less variation in movement. Of course, this did not mean that the life forms from the ancient multiverse universe were not strong. On the contrary, they were very strong, but they were not truly perfect. Ding, 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 sparks exploded between Meng Ta and Yichen. In an instant, no one knew how many blades Meng Ta had slashed out, but what shocked everyone was that Yichen had blocked them without missing a single blade.